can't be all just for surveillance, could it? I mean, I don't know. I'm not.
No, it's for AI and these, servers, YouTube servers and stuff. There's a lot of
Started a
data.
theory that like where all these are, there are huge underground bases and they need tons of fresh water. And so they're using the data centers as a cover, claiming that they need like immense amounts of fresh water to facilitate it to the underground bases because the data centers could use any type of water. There's no need for them to have like specifically clean, fresh drinking water.
I doubt they.
That up,
If you have,
that's gonna be
if you
the.
have
That's
salt
gonna be.
water,
Hold on a second, right? I
okay.
could only talk for a second. Give me just 30 seconds because I'm driving. What Witsit said is very poignant because the next commodity is going to be water. So look at all the rich people, they're buying land where there's water.
And if it's gonna be dirty water, it's gonna mess up the cooling system. If it's gonna be salt water, the salt is going to mess up the cooling system. It's exactly as a water-cooled PC, just at a much larger scale. And they only need the water once, because after it's in the system, it doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it does go somewhere. That's why they're talking about the water that the runoff is like poisoning streams and shit. So they clearly have to at some point change the water out. That's why there's pollution happening from it, allegedly.
The pollution is
The data centers are for. The data centers, if you're wondering, they're for AI to keep control of all our conversations. We're going to have a social credit system coming our way, just like China does.
Yeah, I would argue that powers that be are losing control. They're scrambling more than dystopian future you guys paint.
It's from where I'm standing, it looks like everything is going almost perfectly according to plan. Well,
When you guys agreed that like all the wealthiest people are buying huge underground bases, right? And like it seems like most of them want to go to New Zealand, but like they're all buying and building huge underground bases.
I thought the bases were already built.
I'm all right, but I mean, if you look at like Jared Kushner, and whatever her name is, Ivanka Trump, they're building one right now, right? Like they just bought an island to do
they
it.
Didn't buy an island.
Okay, what'd they do?
I said they did buy an island.
Oh, I thought you said they didn't. Yeah, I mean, I know that they're like protesting.
They did do that.
People are protesting it, supposedly trying to stop it. Who knows?
Yeah, they're like, that's our land. Rich people can't just come in and buy a large section of our country.
Well, it's like a whole thing too, because like they already shut down part of it. It's just like something about like flamingos that live there that are gonna die, and the government took over most of the land that the public should have access to already, and so the location of that island backs up to the land the government's already taken. So they basically are blocking the public out for like from the most beautiful land there. And it's gonna like destroy like all the nature and flamingos or whatever. And then that island, I guess, has like a whole network of underground tunnels and bunkers from the Cold War.
Yeah, it was like an ex-military settlement, which is an interesting choice of real estate to pick for your whimsically just hey, and you heard the story as they explained it. We were on a boating trip with our friends, and had just happened to be sailing past an island, and we swam to shore. Not likely, the waves would smash you against the rocks, but that's the story. And then we walked barefoot, she says, to the top of the mountain. The view was so beautiful. That's when we just decided we should buy this. And that's the story they said. It's like, yeah. Yeah, as simple as that, is it? No, I don't think so. What are you really doing?
Where's that island?
I forget. Sorry.
I can't remember.
One Google search away. Someone just Google which island did Ivanka Trump just buy?
Yeah, I just Googled it.
And the water thing could all just be a psyop too, though. Like they claim that like they're draining the lakes, in Arizona. Like, look, you see, because those are man-made lakes to begin with, so it wouldn't be hard to like just drain them and stop filling them up and to feed into it. But like the idea that we're out of water, or we can be out of water when there's like vast rivers of underground, water, like, and it all gets recycled again and comes back through the earth again. Like, it's hard to believe that the underground bunkers would need to get water from us when there's a bunch of water under there already. You know what I mean? Like, if that's where primary water comes from. And it could just be like smoke and mirrors too. Like, oh, like just to hike up our, just like they did with the eggs, like, oh, we're running out of eggs. Now you got to pay fucking still $10 for a dozen eggs or whatever, like it's insane. Like maybe they're just finding another way to tax us and convincing us all that water is running out when it's actually not. I don't know. Just
if your conspiracy theory is based on a first order linkage to what is reported in the news. Oh, I saw this in the news, and then I have just an alternative why they did it. That I don't think that's how any of these big deal situations operate. Oh, they're doing this. That must be for this specific reason. I think that that's a little short-sighted, and that they did this, and that's reported probably to give off an impression and mislead you of what it's actually for. And then narratives are promoted, like injected into the treaty community to give a narrative to us in a way to think about it that's wrong in the first place. So we spin our wheels and go nowhere. And then there's definitely at least a second further layer deep that's probably more close to the actual truth of the matter than just the first idea anyone comes up with.
So, like, I kind of have a different take. Like, I think it's very obvious what they're for, and they're just building an immense surveillance system, and they have like a Skynet, and they're using AI to surveil. Like, they already surveil us, and yeah, they already have cameras, but nothing like what they're building right now, right? I mean, they're building them literally everywhere. Just like when they rolled 5G out. I mean, yeah, we had towers up everywhere before that, but nothing like what happened when they rolled 5G out, and nothing like happened when they rolled smart meters out, and now they're on practically 80% of the houses or whatever it is. So they're upgrading the system, and they just have to have, enough computing power to actively surveil it, especially if they're trying to store it and then sift through all of it, right? I mean, if you just look at like what Israel's doing, for example, to Gaza, they used AI to do the ethnic cleansing the whole time. It's just like the new form of surveillance and warfare, right? So like if that's kind of obvious that they're building these huge data centers and surveillance is going up everywhere, then they just give you the cover story that people are only pissed about the fact that it's going to make sound, which they don't, or that it's going to take the water. They're going to come and give you a solution, say, look, we're not going to use the drinking water. We have an alternative solution. We're going to use wastewater and clean it or whatever they say. And then people are like, oh, okay, well then it's okay. Right, when it's really just like a dystopian freaking technocratic surveillance system, which it seems is like right in front of everybody. But everyone's arguing about the water and the land.
What is the surveillance state? What is the surveillance state a stepping stone towards? If it's not the end goal,
complete control, right? Like if they can literally see everything that
control lead to.
What do you mean? Right, like they're gonna like if you listen to like Peter Thiel, Psycho, like they're just gonna basically slowly replace the police force. They're creating body cams that never go off. They're talking about like robotic police, and then automated like cars that don't have drivers, that have like robots and all this crazy stuff. So like, yeah, this is exactly if you were gonna do some like crazy dystopian like 1984 on steroids thing, this is how you would do it, right? Like you would just slowly integrate the new technology. So like,
what Jeremy
wants. What do you mean? What would they do? Like they're just gonna have complete control, bro. They're gonna have like robots everywhere that watch literally every square inch of everything. They already have all of your communication, and you're just gonna have to do whatever they say.
But check this out, right? If there's a larger metaphysical goal or like an ultimate goal that they're just like pawns in. No matter who you could kidnap and interview and waterboard or whatever, like they would know. But if there was some sort of by Satan design thing or whatever, what is the goal? Okay, there's a bunch of elites who have fully accomplished getting everyone basically turned into robots. Now, that is there a larger goal? Say they just accomplished that. The elite class, as pawns, have turned everyone into robots. They're completely surveilled. Everyone behaved exactly how they're instructed and coerced and indoctrinated to behave. Is that the final goal? Just to create a world of slaves that follow the rules of the elite, or
You're gonna have to
is
invoke a
that for
worldview.
or is that for a greater goal in order to get those slaves to do something?
Well, the Bible would say to take the mark of the beast, right? If like you bring up Satan, right? Like it depends on what, if you believe any of that's real or not, who knows, or if they use it as a script, whatever. But they claim that there's like a mark that comes out that everyone has to take to buy, sell, or trade. In order to implement anything like that, you would have to be able to enforce it, right? So you would have to have like mass surveillance, and you have to be able to shut off everyone's access to everything, and they didn't take it. So I mean, that's what the Bible would say. The Bible would say like this is a system that'll be built to implement a mark that you have to take, or you can't participate in society.
And
That's the
then we
social
would,
credit system that's coming now. The social credit system. Just look at China.
I think worldwide control in the strictest of senses, we all see this heading. A very strict one world order control surveillance state system, whatever. Okay. Now they got everyone under control. Let's just skip it. Let's just skip ahead, to that future. They got everyone under control. Everyone behaves exactly how they want them to behave. Is that actually the final product they're after? Or is getting us all under control brainwashed that way in a complete worldwide surveillance state control system? Is that just a stepping stone to a larger goal after that? Once they get us under control, what are they going to do with us then? What are they going to control us to do?
I'll just give
Or
you
is
one
that it?
answer, right? I mean,
How
maybe there's
into
more
the
answers,
future
but
are you gonna put in this? It goes into infinity. The great goal at the end.
you would agree though that like if the goal was to create a system that was like international, and you had to take a mark to participate in it, or that's a chip or whatever it is, that this would be a stepping stone to that. Right? Like, I mean, if you eliminate that, you mean like if you throw that out, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that may just
No,
be
I
the
didn't.
goal.
I didn't say eliminate that. Say there's a small elite bloodline group or whatever, and everyone else has literally have been implanted with a mind control chip where they're literally programmed digitally and they do exactly what they want. Sure, that could provide for a very nice, comfy, luxurious life to them. It is leeching off of the rest of humanity so that a small group of people can have hot tubs and models and all the luxuries they want. Do you think that that is the final goal? And they're like, all right, we did it, guys. Everyone is mind controlled. Everyone is literally a robot at this point, and we get to live. We get to soak in hot tubs and fuck whatever models we want? Or is there a greater goal besides just these petty little human fleshly desires?
Well, their ultimate goal, like I would say that their ultimate goal is to not die. Right? Like, so
Right.
to find some type of way to not die. And then they don't really care about you, though. Like, I mean, you can die.
For sure.
There's a couple of guys on other servers who are in the pharmaceutical industry who tales of experiments with mice where they're actually able to reverse the aging. They've got age reversing in some lower order mammals already going on. They reckon it can be. They reckon ultimately it can be upscaled.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Yeah, I mean, like another thing is right. If they were gonna roll anything like that out, like any major upgrade that just completely removes freedom, like this would be you taking precautions for any type of like attempted rebellion, right? Like if they were concerned at all with like some type of revolution or rebellion, um, the easiest way to prevent that would be have like a mass surveillance system, right, enforced by whatever. And like there are many things that could cause us to rebel, right? So if they completely eliminate majority of the workforce with like robots, whatever, right, and they don't like they don't care because they're bottom dollar, whatever, then people might be pissed about that. Who knows? Like that's what I actually think it is. I think that they're just gonna make sure that we like they keep us in order as they kind of roll out the new system. And they're like seeding all the stuff in the public, right? Like if you listen to Elon, who's clearly like a front character, like he can't, and Peter Thiel does the same thing. They all say the same stuff, which is like, really people won't even need to work in 10 years, and there will be such prosperity and such an abundance of products and services that people won't really even have to work. And they talk about universal basic income and blah blah blah. So I mean, that's their cover story because really they just want to replace people with robots. It's just cheaper.
I think the ultimate goal, whether the people even at the highest physical level are knowledgeable of what they're involved in, because there might be a higher force instructing their and behaviors all going down a certain direction. I think the ultimate goal is to basically give the middle finger to a creator that they may believe in and say, fuck you, I'm going to make my own reality and rule over it free from your domain. I think that's probably the ultimate goal everything is heading towards. Basically just the creation of the demiurge or becoming a demiurge or becoming a god. I don't want to serve the God that they believe in, or they don't want to serve the God they believe in. So they say, I want to make my own universe and be the God of it. I will be in charge.
Yeah, I don't know. My discernment tells me like God, the creator, we are his children, and he would want us to be successful and kind of gain power. So I see it more of an optimistic viewpoint. I think
Yeah, I
know
just
that,
think the evil people want to be the gods of their own. They literally want to create a pocket universe and be the god of it, the creator of it, and rule over it.
yeah. Yeah, and I see your point. You know, like I think the evil powers that be, they see God's children. The only way to punish God or get at God, or get at the Lord, would be to have His creation, blaspheme Him, or yeah.
Yeah,
So
leave God's world and enter mine. Upload your consciousness into my sub reality construct.
mm,
Let me be your God. I'll do a better job, I promise.
What if the
yeah, that
dichotomy
is
of God itself is the reason why they do all this? Like we keep concentrating on God
Uh-huh.
and we equate that with the creator, but this God is actually what creates this realm that we're in where we have this greed and we have this lust and we have this idea that we are trying to be prosperity here on earth, when what we really are supposed to be doing is living under natural law and following what we are supposed to do in each current moment. And the reason why all of these autocratic things are put into place is to mask us from what reveals from spiritual natural law. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah,
And I think
I'm
to put
with
on
you
top of
there.
that, I think that God, the way that they framed God, is one of many gods. And because we put all of our emphasis into that one God, whether we believe in it or not, because our entire system is created from that one God, we are reinforcing it whenever we talk about it. And it's not that it's evil, it's that it's that particular channel that we're putting our energy. And I think they're not after our money. They're not really after our control. They're after us. They're trying to mask what happened with the Jesus movement when people started following the way. They know that if people really shed everything from this natural world and realize that their spirituality is the most important thing that they have, and living under natural law and leading the way that they should lead, that it doesn't matter. None of this really matters, literally with the word matter. It's all 3D. It has nothing to do with what your real purpose is here.
But think yourself, what was Jesus' main message, right? It was that we are all one. We are all of the same creator. And what the internet does at its fundamental level, it just connects all of us in ways that, were unfathomable a decade ago. We never thought we'd walk around with computers in our pockets, screens, and we can look at someone's point of view from around on the other side of the world.
Right.
So,
I'd say it's almost a
Totally.
mirror. I think that we actually have Christ consciousness that we can actually channel into without these phones. I mean, the phones just reveal what's already there. All this internet just reveals. It's just like it's opening. It's a tool, but it's been weaponized. It's useful, but I actually think that we could actually do most of these things communicating if we were really highly enlightened. But it's hard to get
I
there
love that
because
idea, man. I love that
but
idea.
we all are hypocrites. Have to be. We're not willing to do what Jesus told us to do, which is shed it all and step out, because we get persecuted for it. And you lose your family, you lose your friends, you lose everybody around you if you're just trying to walk the path the way you should walk it. And you're not supposed to do it because that's what you're supposed to do. And we all live in this fear. And I think, and personally think, that it's all because of this power that we give this God that's the centerpiece of what I think is the most controllable thing in our society, which is the Bible, which can be very controversial, but that's my take on it.
Yeah, cosmology and theology are going to be the most influential things in shaping people. And yeah, in the middle of my sentence, I'll repeat it if that's okay. I was just saying, I think only soulless beings require a book to give them their sense of morality or instructions in life. And I think that's basically just evidence you don't have a soul if you require that external source to give you a foundation
Are we
to
back?
base your
SC, were you saying something? I
morals
think the
on.
whole VC went out, so.
Oh, Fundy was talking just now. Could you not hear him? Gia, can you hear me?
The question is, what if you define it as something totally random? That's your question?
I would call it random,
I'm
but
actually going to push back on you, Witsit,
alternative.
on this. I'm going to push back on you, Witsit, because Satan's not a real person.
Satan is a title, which means
It's
opposition, but there's like a ultimate adversary denoted as a person.
he's an entity for sure.
Well, yeah, that's what. But okay, the word person theologically denotes like even metaphysical entities, right? Like like the personhood of the Trinity, for example. Right? It's not. It's a personal characteristic, but whatever. I mean, the point is though that like, have you guys ever had experiences where there's like metaphysical experiences with some type of entities that don't seem benevolent in nature?
Well, I have for sure.
Me too. I have, like, even with
For sure.
a Ouija board. It's totally real. Ouija boards are totally real. So I don't know. I mean, there's something going on.
What's your experience with that Ouija board? You tried it out?
Yeah. Like I just like the disclaimer here is like what normally people do is they're like that can't be real and they try it. Like I genuinely do not suggest anyone tries it, but whatever. Like that's why I tried it. But in college, I was like chilling and this girl I was talking to, me and my friends were hanging with her and her friends in the dorm, and they started talking about Ouija boards.
Way, yeah. Well, thank you.
They play these videos, right? And these people are like faking it, like they're acting like they're possessed and all that stuff. I'm like, this is the gayest. This is so stupid. And we were like laughing about how it's fake, and this girl was swearing it was real. So we made one. Like we just made one out of a piece of paper. Like we just wrote the alphabet on it, 13 letters, and then 13 letters, whatever, and then 0 through 9, and then yes and no. And then we took the top of a smoothie can, and it's got the little hole in the middle, you know. And we started like asking it questions or whatever, and then it kind of like jerked a little bit, and I just assumed my friend was messing with me. The girl freaked out and asked us to get out of her room, and we went into the girls' bathroom, like in their dorm. Anyway, so then we started asking it questions, and the girl I was talking to at the time recorded this on my phone. I told her to record it. She recorded this. So there was a video of this, and I just asked like random questions they were asking in the video. So it's like, is there a spirit here? Like are you a good spirit? Whatever. So I asked like if it was a girl. There was a story that some girl got murdered in the bathroom, whatever. And it didn't go all the way to the words or whatever like in the movies. It just moves in the direction though. And I started like I was getting real mad at my friend that I was moving it. So then we both did this thing where we like barely put our fingers above it. Like we weren't even really touching it, like barely above it. And it moved for like 4 questions in a row, bro. Like I asked it how old it was, and it like went down towards the numbers a little bit, but it didn't like give me a number or anything like that. And then when I asked it like, are you a good spirit? It didn't move, and it had moved like 3 or 4 times at least. And I said, F this B, right? And as soon as I said that, there was like a growl. A literal growl, bro. Like, and we all looked at the window in the bathroom because like it kind of sounded like a howl, like wind in a way, and the tree was like completely still. And me and my friend, he was like a sinner, so he's like this huge black guy, he's like 350 pounds. We were like sprinting away like little girls, like scared. And the girl just sat there. She's super creepy, honestly, like in retrospect. But okay, long story short, we got so scared that we went and jumped in my car. We started driving around. We were like, where can we go? Where can we go? We went to Walmart because there's all these lights, you know? We prayed. I wasn't like even a Christian, bro, but we prayed like 10 times. We just prayed like every few minutes. We were so scared. And then when we got back in the car, I plugged my phone up. We played the video, and you could hear the growl again. And dude, my experiences whenever I heard the growl, I felt like something was right behind me. Like literally felt like something was behind me, and I freaked out, and I deleted the video, and I was like, I don't even care if anyone believes
I was
it's
gonna
real
say,
or
post
whatever.
the video. What are you doing?
This was like 2011, you know, like I was like, I don't even care if people believe it. Freaked me out so much. We slept in the same dorm, you know, like with the lights on and the TV. I mean,
You guys cuddled. Did you spoon? Who was the big spoon? Who's the little spoon? Just joking. You were probably a little spoon, weren't you?
Bunk beds. Never little spoon.
Yeah, when I was growing up, there was this table, this haunted house, and there was this like card table, and we'd play table up on it, and you would just sit with your hands on the table, and you just repeat that table up, and then it would rock, and then you would ask it, rock 1 for yes, 2 for no, and you'd ask it questions, and that shit was scary, man. At one point, someone asked it to like levitate off the ground. This fucking table started spinning. It was terrifying, dude. It was the last time I did it.
Yeah.
How do you know you're not being tricked though? Like, how do you know if it's such a trickster spirit? How do you know that people who are allegedly talking to Jesus or talking to God or whatever aren't just being tricked by some spirit that's like messing with you?
I mean, You got it. That's where your
that's a good
discernment
point.
comes in.
It says test the spirits. Yeah, it says that will happen.
But how do you test that? Like, how do you know? Like, what do you mean test it? Like, what
It says test it against
specifically?
the scriptures specifically. So it says like if it tells you to do anything, whatever, if it doesn't align with the fruits of the spirit, stuff like that, then it's not legit.
And then it also it's like when your dad calls you, you know when your dad is calling you. It's exactly the same thing.
Unless it's somebody LARPing as your dad, it's not actually your dad. Like,
I
It does
understand
say you
that,
can
but
be
then
tricked.
people,
Yeah.
So you
I
can be
understand that
tricked.
people have curiosity, right? And then other people in grief to contact the other side of the world. But you're saying, is that the flesh, or that's more of your spirit trying to do those do those things?
It's the
Because maybe in
flesh.
your so your curiosity is the flesh.
Well, that's like a super vague term, but you can be curious about the nature of God. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, like trying to go outside of God and get answers or interactions with the spiritual realm would be your flesh. Yeah, like because it's like some type of selfish desire, right? Like what are you hoping to accomplish? You're trying to get like some shortcut to some answers or some advantage or whatever. Most people that do that for that reason, right? They're trying to talk to a loved one that died. They're trying to, get some type of answers about what they should do. They're trying to have the future told. They're trying to have them read and tell them what other people in their lives are doing or control them or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had an experience with me and my cousin. We were at our house, at my grandparents' house at the time. I was like 14. Um, my cousin was about the same age. The nobody was home. They were at church. We were home alone. We were at our friend's house. We came into the house. We heard a little noise, and we're like, nobody's home. We're like, if you don't get out of the house in 3 seconds, we're gonna, I picked up one of these chimney things, and as soon as he said that, everything inside the kitchen started like all you hear, all the plates, we ran the hell out of the freaking house in like less than a split second. Scared the
Yeah, it's
shit
like
out of
totally
us.
real. It's totally real, but like I get why people would think it's maybe not real if they hear those stories or my story. Like that's why I did it. That's why I normally don't tell the story because then people want to do it, and like I wish I didn't do it because like
Yeah.
bro, there was a growl right when I cussed it out, and the growl was replayed on the freaking video. It's like even if you try to say it was something other than a growl, like it just so happened to happen right when I said like F this bitch. Like, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it's super creepy, bro. And
Yeah, you don't want to mess with that.
did you
no,
talk to
you
the
don't.
chick afterwards? You said she just sat there and she was kind of weird.
Yeah, I did talk to her, but I just remember always like I broke up with her like a week later. Like, I just felt like she was creepy, bro. Like she just sat there and then she like it's like she was unfazed. And then she walked out of the bathroom and the light was it was on or off, whichever one it was like not the way that we had left it. And I'm like, did you do that? And she like didn't answer. She was just looking at me all weird. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was super creepy because like, bro, she's around like two college football players. One of them's like 350 pounds, and we're like terrified, sprinting away, and she's just chilling. Like that's super creepy to me. So, yeah, I broke up with her.
But
She also
can I
went
ask a
crazy. So.
flat earth question?
Well, real
Yeah.
quick before you do that, I just want to ask, going back to like the testing the spirits, how did Abraham process or come to terms with, God, the Lord telling him to sacrifice his child? If that really happened, how would, if, you don't know if it's God or not.
That's a good question. Yeah,
Did he even
like
ask that?
We
Well,
we
I
would have to
mean,
know what it was
what was
like back then as well. What life would.
well, he was testing it practically, you could say, because he was saying the Lord will provide. When he asked, when he was asked by his son, "Where's the sacrificial lamb?" He told him the Lord will provide. So it was practically testing.
So in context, if you're taking the Bible to be literally true, right? Like at that point, he had been walking around talking to God for decades, right? Like he would recognize God's voice like intimately. At that point, And by the way, that story is actually kind of deep, right? Because it's like, it's forecasting the crucifixion.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a later midrash where Isaac does get killed and then resurrected.
Wait, so did he kill his kid or not?
No, he was stopped before.
No,
He
very
was
close.
stopped,
Yeah.
but he almost
He
did
would have
it.
went
If
through
he,
with it though, you know.
that's crazy.
He was
Kind of like
stopped,
the
and the
whole
Lord
point, though.
provided a sacrificial lamb.
Imagine the creator of everything, bro, like testing you like that. I probably would go through with it too, you know.
I wouldn't
But,
do it. Like,
how
oh,
could you
sorry.
go against that? Yeah.
Here's the thing about it. So like, say hypothetically that you had seen like real life supernatural interventions, you knew for sure God was real, like he interacted with you, all these things, like you knew for sure God was real, right? Like, and was like you had seen him do like direct supernatural things like in the real physical world repeatedly, and then so you knew he was telling you to do it. Would you not do it?
I mean, he
I don't know.
wasn't his wife
I mean,
95 when she got pregnant or something?
Yeah, I mean,
mean,
I don't blame someone for I can't even fathom the idea of killing
Would
my
you
own
do
son.
it?
It's
That's the
insane.
real question. Would
I
you
really can't
take your
imagine.
one of your own
I can't
children's
imagine.
lives because
No,
God
I
told you
can't.
to? Fuck
Well,
that.
I can't
Nope,
imagine.
not
Like,
my God.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I just can't imagine it. So I can't even.
that's a tough one, man. That's a really tough question, you know, because he gave you that child in the first place, you know.
I mean, it
And he
literally gave him that child.
and he could give you he could give you much more, probably, you know. So that would be tough for me.
This is the whole thing, right? Like the whole point was that if he had just trusted him, he didn't actually want him to kill his son, right? Like the whole point was just that it was showing the pain and the sacrifice that he does, sacrificing his son in the future, right? And he makes him carry the wood all the way up the mountain, which is just like how Jesus had to carry the cross, right? Like everything about it was just forecasting. Like the story was in there for that purpose. It was a 3-day journey to travel to where they were going, etc.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Hey, listen, guys. If you don't mind, I put 2 videos. Just if y'all want to look at those, I think I caught a very good glimpse of the source sun and the projected sun through Dicenian glass that I recorded just about an hour ago, and it's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty interesting.
It was crazy with this. Even go crazier than that because as they're taking Isaac to go get sacrifice, on the way back, his wife died. His wife died before seeing her son coming back, and knew that he was gonna go taking him for the slaughter.
Ouch.
Yeah. By the way, just random, but I just thought of it. I just posted this video, where there's 3 pieces of like mirror, and they're different shapes. So it's like a rectangle, triangle, whatever. And they're like different sizes. And so when you hold the cardboard up, it reflects the sunlight, and you obviously see the shape of each mirror. But as he pulls it back further, it starts to turn into a circle. And then as it goes all the way back, all 3 lights are the same size and circles, like perfect circles. And the bigger one is just brighter. Pretty crazy. So seeing like stars as circles, etc., means literally nothing.
Yeah, it's cool how the eye works, huh? Pretty revealing. Like the conical, it looks like light rays like shooting out from the sun, diverging, you know, in every direction. But it's really just the point source in the distance, and your eyes widest roundest part are the extent of each divergent ray. Pretty cool, actually.
Yeah,
Okay,
interesting.
so
Uh,
okay, so
yeah, did you have?
I have a question. Yeah, so the question is like if the Earth, like considering Earth flat, if we want to create, if someone is created globe Earth model, right? So the distances should not be correct, right? So can we find any kind of flaws in the globe Earth distance? Because if like if we take a particular section of the flat Earth and they converted it into globe using a spherical coordinate system, then there should be like distances should not be correct, right?
Yeah.
Well, are you okay with accepting
Correct distances.
the
Is there any
radius
way?
of the radius of a perfect circle or an oblate spheroid? Is the real question.
Doesn't matter. That's not relevant. Like,
Doesn't
but
matter.
what? Like, how do you? That doesn't matter in the context, no. But like, what? Like, how do we measure long distances? Can you give me a reliable methodology that I can measure a long distance over the ocean so I can fulfill your
Yeah.
request here? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like whenever I ask when Globers ask me this question, then when I ask them the same question like you're asking, they say like they use GPS and they use aeroplanes and they use triangulation and all. Then I say like GPS is also based on globe.
Yeah.
Then they say no, we have physical measurements, and when I ask them what kind of physical measurements do we have, then they say like we can triangulate, we can have three lines, and
GPS is not based on a globe.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's based on ECF. There's one coordinate, 3 axes.
It's based on an ECEF.
Yep.
I mean,
Earth-centered,
what does
Earth-fixed frame.
ECEF stand for?
Earth-centered, Earth-fixed.
Okay, what is Earth?
I don't know that.
It's based on a hemisphere, right?
Time out. What is
there's
Earth?
there's one point, and it maps
Are this place
Cartesian
we live?
coordinates. It maps
Physical
Cartesian coordinates
surface?
in 3
Or,
axes against that.
I don't know, like a realm?
Can you
Guys,
hear
let's go on time.
Finky?
Pinky was going. Go ahead, Pinky.
Yeah.
So sure.
Well, he said there's one point and then a coordinate system with 3 axes, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah. Okay. Does it not have the entirety of the globe coordinate system to give you your coordinates?
No, like spherical coordinate system is derived from the celestial sphere, right? If we want to map a flat Earth, then we need flat coordinate system like Cartesian coordinate system. So we need first reference point, then we need straight lines and perpendicular lines, and then with that physical coordinate, we can draw a real flat Earth map, and that map should be with correct distances. But if someone took that
you
flat
just
Earth and
described
made it spherical, then the distances should not be correct, right?
You just described the ECF frame and the Cartesian coordinates that's
can
used for
someone
GPS.
debunk the global?
The ground just happens to be underneath you, and the GPS doesn't know the ground's there. It just has you in 3D space, and the ground happens to be there.
It maps it out on a globe.
It's transposed though, isn't it?
No, it doesn't. You can.
Okay,
you
so
can take,
GPS
hold
doesn't
on,
give
hold
me
on. You
longitude and
can-
latitudes.
It can. It can convert. It can convert the Cartesian coordinates in ECF to latitude.
GPS can give you that.
Yes. Bro, every time I
Right.
talk,
Can you,
this
can
guy
you
jumps
hear
in.
the
I don't get
Finky
it.
guy, bro? It's like you can't hear him, and every time he's talking, you talk through him. I don't think
You know what we're
can
gonna
hear
do?
him.
Let's have like Pinky and Austin or Witsit just go back and forth. Like you guys can go back and forth for a bit. I think other people are saying that in the chat anyway. So you guys can go back and forth.
He genuinely can't hear him.
Yeah, but I mean that's messed up because he was the one that brought up the conversation. So taking him
But
out.
can you let him answer? Like, can you hear Finky? Do you have him muted? Can you not hear him? Because Discord was just messing up where Geo couldn't hear people, right? So like,
Yeah, it does happen.
Jim?
And sometimes you self mute mute people without fun.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I can hear. Yeah.
You can hear
Not
Finky?
me, Finky, it's Finky.
Hi.
No, I can't hear him. No.
Okay, yeah, so we got to figure it out. So either leave and come back, make sure he's not muted, whatever. He's been talking quite a bit, and you just kind of talk at the same time.
Okay, now I unmuted him. Maybe he was muted by me. Yeah.
Okay. Problem solved. So, like, anyway, man,
I like muted Finky
we're talking
sometimes,
the context of this is distances, right? So, like, it's a real cute little trick to say, like, we're just gonna pick a single point, and it's just gonna be mapped out on 3 axes. How's that gonna give us a distance?
From what? From the center?
No, we're talking about distances on the Earth from point to point.
GPS, like if it to give you a distance, it converts it to lat long. But
Well, that was
it
the
doesn't
context.
have to do that.
That's what we were talking about. So whenever
okay, sorry, go ahead.
Time out. So when he brought up like, well, look, if the Earth is flat, but you make it into a globe, then there's going to be a discrepancy in distances. I'm like, yeah, but how can you give us some type of reliable system that we can measure long distances, like over the ocean, for example? And he brought up how they bring up GPS. He says it uses a globe. You jumped in and said GPS doesn't use a globe. Like using GPS to determine distances absolutely uses the globe, right? Like it uses the longitude latitude system to give you the distance.
Yeah, but that's not the core function of GPS. That's the secondary. That would be that's after you get the raw GPS coordinate.
Just a red herring.
It's not. That's what it is. You could chat GPT it, Google it, whatever.
Oh, do you know what a red herring is?
Yeah, it's something that distracts from the actual argument. And that's
Okay.
like, this is, if somebody said, what's evidence the Earth's curved, I would say you can take a differential GPS RTK unit to the salt flats, the flattest place on Earth, and just drive in any direction. And the GPS unit will tell you if the ground you're traveling on is curving. And it doesn't do that with latitude and longitude. It does that with 3D Cartesian coordinates.
But you just double down with another red herring?
It's not, that's I'm addressing exactly what that guy said.
What did he say?
He said globers come and they say we measured the surface of Earth, and the globers will quote GPS, and he's right. I just did it twice.
No, we're
and
talking
I'm telling
about
you why I say that.
distances on the Earth, bro. His question is, if a glober says, hey, if the Earth is flat and we mapped it into a sphere, then that would mean that the distances would be wrong on the sphere model. And so we're talking about verifying distances traveled on Earth. Using GPS to do that obviously utilizes the sphere. It makes the proper corrections into that as well.
All right, fine. I'll lodge my argument for when the topic comes around to that.
Okay. I think it doesn't even. We can just cut to the chase here, right? There's not a reliable methodology to accurately and reliably determine distances over long distances, right? Like there's just not, especially over the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it that you can take the average speed of a boat and compare how long that journey takes, and then compare that to a plane with a known speed, distance over time, or speed over time, and it gives you the distance.
Compare it to a plane?
Yeah, I mean, like there's cruises that go from like the port of Los Angeles to Hawaii, and there's also daily flights that go from Los Angeles to Hawaii, and and knowing the speed of a cruise liner, which is whatever it is, 18 knots, right? It's a pretty steady speed. And then knowing the speed of an aircraft, 500 miles an hour or whatever, 500 knots, you get basically the same distance, right?
No, you don't know either of those speeds.
How do you not know either of those speeds? What do you mean?
How do you determine the speed of a boat?
Well, the speed of the boat can be measured by measuring how fast the water is going by the boat. It can also be measured using GPS. It can be measured doing celestial navigation and at various points along the path.
Okay,
it can be measured. It could be measured using. In the old days, right? There was like Loran or whatever, right? It was ground based radio signal. On an airplane, it could be using a VOR, which is a radio signal. It could be using GPS. It could be using ground radar, which is directly measuring the speed from the plane using radar on the plane, bouncing it into the ground. It could be via GPS. It could be via celestial navigation. That's how you did it for many years prior to GPS. No, I'm saying all of those methods all agree on how fast those vehicles are moving over
No,
the
they don't.
over the Earth.
No, they don't. Cruise ships don't measure how fast the water's moving. GPS is just circular. You're affirming the very thing we're trying to test in the first place, right?
Well,
like the way that it's done in
driving a car would work, right? You could drive find straight roads, drive car. I mean, it's not exactly, but it'll give you a pretty good idea. You could drive up and down a coast in a car, and then you could go up and down a coast in a boat, and then get a pretty decent reference for.
First of all, no one's done that.
Versus the car.
No one's ever done that. So secondly, like driving down the coast, right? There's no straight road down the coast. But what we do in reality, because you guys are just doing like back in the day they did this, you could do this, you could do this. Well, in reality, with how you presented it so obvious and so easily, people take cruises all the time. You guys always do this like bait and switch thing, right? And the way that we actually do that in practice, right? We just use speed equals distance over time. The way that they determine the speed of a boat is the assumed distance from the point A to point B, and then how long it took them to get there. right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you look at like a power boat, right, it uses the speed of the propeller to tell you how fast the boat is going.
But that's not going to
Which,
actually give you the net speed.
yeah, I mean, depending on the current on a lake, it gives you the speed, right? Because the lakes don't really have currents, unless it's like a huge lake and high wind or something. But it more or less, it gives you the correct speed, within a couple mile per hour at most.
I mean,
We're talking
what's
about
the end
vast
of this? The
distances
end
of
of
the
this is like
ocean.
I mean, this idea,
we don't know how
that
far.
we don't, yeah, this idea that we don't know how fast planes actually fly over the ground. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? Because
Do you not know the difference in
there are
airspeed and
mutually
ground speed?
but there's mutually exclusive ways. Like you can compare your airspeed to your ground speed in an airplane.
When do we do
Um,
that? Can you cite an example of that?
Airspeed to
Because
ground speed.
yeah, because those
Sure, like
almost never match. Those almost never
well, on
match.
modern airplanes, it'll show the ground speed on a modern airliner. It can show you the ground speed in reference to the ground radar system, and it can show it to you what the GPS is reporting as your ground speed, and you can compare that to the airspeed, the TAS, the true airspeed that the airplane is flying through the air, and obviously depending on the wind aloft, there's going to obviously be a discrepancy between that. But and you can also compare it to what the VOR is reporting as your speed at the rate at which you're going towards a VOR. So all of those methods would give you an independent method of verifying the speed. This idea that we have no real accurate way of knowing how fast a plane goes, it's just absurd.
What's
Like,
the VOR?
it's just a
Can I ask
fact,
like two
actually. So
questions really quick about? First of all, the car was invoked. The car and the plane are different because the car uses rotations of the wheel to get the distance, and like if the car slips at all or the wheel changes circumference, that's not a perfect accuracy. But the propeller boat was the really peculiar one, because imagine you have two boats. One has a current moving against it at 1,000 miles an hour. The other has a current moving with it at 1,000 miles an hour. They have the same propeller.
Do what?
What if one of the boats has no current moving against it? The propeller does not indicate the accurate speed of the boat at all.
That's why I said in relation to, obviously I said that just like with the airplane, you're going to have an true airspeed versus a ground speed. On the boat, if you're on, that's why I brought up the lake. I said on a lake, your speed is going to match what the water is flowing past it. Now, obviously on the ocean, you could have a couple of knot current, so there's going to be a difference in the current versus, it's just like airspeed versus ground speed on a plane because of the air currents. There's obviously ocean currents too. Nobody is saying that the boat is going to give you, in a current, it's going to give you the correct speed. I'm just
well,
saying that
currents in the
those are
water
just.
aren't the only thing. Like the
I'm
air
just saying that those
itself
aren't
would
mutually
actually.
exclusive.
You understand that the wind would affect the boat itself, not just the currents. So
I agree with that. I just think
the
it's a
wind.
weird. I think it's a weird position of like we can never know how far away Hawaii is.
I think what you
the
is that it's
position
like an
of
uncomfortable
the car and the
position.
boat at the same. They're not the same metric. The car, the boat, and the plane. It's all different.
I agree.
That was your
Look,
position.
here's the
Witsit
deal,
pointed
right?
out the difference between airspeed and ground speed. I mean, I agree with that.
Airspeed is measured relative to the static pressure in the plane. Because I deep dove in this, and when you go look at the speeds of actual flights going on, the speed reported is not accurate at all, right? Because the plane will get there 45 minutes early, but based on the speed, it shouldn't be there yet. And it's like, okay, well, obviously the answer is that the airspeed is different, and that's assuming the distance, which is what's in contention right now, right? Like,
You mean on like flight radar?
yeah,
No,
Flight radar
that's
doesn't
usually
use
spot on. It uses GPS.
It's using
it's not
GPS
usually
using
spot on.
ADSB.
It's not usually spot
Oh,
on. It
it
gives
is.
you
It is too.
Yeah,
no,
it's
it's
ADSB.
not.
It's incredibly precise.
It's not.
Specifically, where is it not spot on? Are you talking
It'll
about
give
while
you
you're in the
speed.
plane and you're looking at
Yeah,
the back of the headrest?
no. When you look at any flight that's going on while it's flying, it's going to give you a speed. That speed doesn't actually match like the amount of time it takes them to get there. It happens all the time because they don't actually give you a live reading of airspeed. They don't do that.
Oh, yes, they do.
No, okay, cite it.
Me, I'm the citation.
None of those are giving
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah, none
People
of
just
those are
say
giving you.
things.
None of those are giving you airspeed. They're always giving you ground speed. Like the ones, like the ones that they will play like on the in the old days on the screen.
Yeah,
Those
so you
were
agree that the
always
ground
ground
speed.
speed.
You agree they're
You
not
guys can't.
actually actively measuring the ground speed over the ocean, right?
Yes,
Right, and you
speed
you
over
guys
the
can't
ground is
dissipate.
is what you get
You,
from the flight radar services. It's speed over the ground from point A to point B.
Are they actually measuring that live?
Yeah.
GPS.
No, they're not yet.
Well,
GPS. Okay, so that's the whole
well, keep in
point.
mind, ATC can see it through. If you're within the radar zone, ATC can measure your speed as well.
Isn't that a begging the
You
question
always do
from a
this
fallacy?
thing. You always do this thing where you're like, they could do this, they could do this. Or we're talking about what they actually do.
I mean, I just think
yeah,
it's strange
Glover
that
guys,
you think.
listen, guys. You can't count out also in the air versus the ocean. You know the weather speeds, the the jet stream speeds. At certain elevations. For one, for the air and thrust of the engines, you have to mathematically figure that out, and you can't count out telluric currents in the ocean, right?
How do
So
they determine the estimated arrival time?
without and
They
without even
use the
being in the air first, you have to count the speed of the air against you or for you, right? Versus when you're actually in the air and the pressure of the plane, static pressure, like Witsit was talking about.
But what they do is they
Count
take
all that.
they take the distance on the globe, right? The assumed distance, and then they use like an average speed, normally like 500 miles per hour, and they give you a time. And it's always got like a buffer. So it actually
Yeah,
depends on like how long the flight is. But like I've never ever taken a flight that actually takes the amount of time that's listed on my ticket. Ever. Never once.
so like they estimate based. There could be congestion at the airport. There could be one plane's late and the other one's early, so one's got to wait for the other to land. Kind of padding built into
Yeah,
that
and
estimate, right?
they pack in queuing time on the landing. They estimate a certain amount of
I don't know,
queuing
but
time.
have you guys
There's all
ever done the
kinds of.
math though? Go do the
Yeah,
math.
of
Go
course.
take the distance. You say, of course, I don't believe you. Go take the
I
distance. Go
do.
take
I
the.
do the math all the time.
No, you
Yeah,
don't. Go
they
take the
don't know
distance.
which direction they're going to land on the runway either when they're
Guys,
calculating
Yeah,
that.
guys,
like LA to
guys,
like I fly
Witsit
LA to
was in the
Hawaii
middle
all
of
the time.
speaking. There's 3 people interrupting him. Go ahead,
I
Austin.
fly LA
Yeah.
to Hawaii all the time, and it's usually
No,
5.5 hours,
Jake,
which
Witsit
averages
was in the middle
400.
of speaking, and there was 3 people interrupting him. Go ahead,
Cry
Witsit.
more.
So just you take
No,
the distance. Take
go
the
ahead. Go
distance,
ahead.
right? Take the distance that's claimed. Then take the speed, which you're just assuming like an average speed or whatever, right? You're gonna assume even a ground speed, and you're gonna get a time. The flight never actually takes that long, like never. And I'm not talking about them creating buffers. Like yeah, they do that. I'm talking about the actual flight not taking that long. And flights can make up all kinds of times. I know multiple pilots. They tell me what they do is sometimes they actually kind of slow down, right? To make it where they'll get there closer to the time. If anything, that's done more than like trying to get there as fast as you can. But normally they'll just be running a little bit late and they'll just like easily make it up, right? That's what happens usually. Like so my point is though, like the question here, if we want the actual speed, like if we're talking about actual speed, then we're talking about airspeed. Obviously, like if the plane is flying at 500 miles per hour ground speed, but it's in a current of 100 miles per hour, then it's going 600 miles per hour.
That's
You can't
always
just
variable,
easily measure that.
though. That's always variable. It is a variance, but I'm surprised at how accurate it is. When I fly, I always have to calculate forecast winds aloft and things like that. But I'm always amazed at how close it is to the actual times I fly and land. But there was another point I was going to make. I forgot.
You were going to
Okay,
say
so
jet fuel's a hoax, right?
yeah, what's it? Are you
Anyway.
in the jet fuel hoax bandwagon?
No, I mean I think they may not use as much as they claim, but who knows?
Saying LA to Hawaii, I fly that every year. That's usually 5.5 hours each way. Plus or minus 20 minutes, depending on the winds and which direction you're going.
ADS-B
So do you,
includes ground speed, right? Or no?
ADS-B reports the ground speed because it's reported
Okay,
via
so
GPS.
you could set up your own ADS-B receiver for a plane traveling right over your sky, track its angular distance, it's the time it took to do that, and compare it against its elevation and what its reported ground speed is, and you could find that you could catch it
Yeah.
or confirm
Yeah,
it.
and I right now I'll bet someone that it will not match. I'll bet someone right now, like guaranteed it won't match.
Within how
Right,
much
so
percent?
To what
well, that's a
margin of
good
error?
question because
I
it's
might
based
take
on
that
all
bet.
kinds of things.
But it's not going to be like 200% wrong. It might be.
Well, no,
I'd give
of
them
course not.
5%, maybe percent, depending on.
Well, no, it could be 30%, right? It depends on like what the current is, depends on where you're measuring or whatever. But one thing
Well,
that's definitely not
what
done
bet are
is
you
that
willing to make?
methodology throughout the entire path of a plane, right? That's just not done. So it's like, whatever. It's not. This isn't that
Well, we
complicated.
could
By the way, this doesn't
coordinate.
require some malevolent deception either, right? Like someone would just fly the plane, just say hypothetically that the distances are a little bit different because the globe model's wrong. No one would know that. It doesn't require any type of malevolence. Someone would just fly the plane, assuming the distance is right, and then they're just gonna be like, "Oh, look, we got a little boost. That's cool. Whatever. We're getting there faster." You would never really know, right? Like it's a huge gray area here, and the only reason that I even expressed contention is the way that he presented it is this like definitive, precisely known thing that's actively measured. That's just patently false. That is not how it works at all. We don't really care because what we know is that plane is going to get there on time. Typically, we have a buffer. We know that any little boost, any wind is going to just help us get there faster. If anything, we're going to have to kind of kill some time, and it just is what it is. People just care
So
about
we can just
making
easily
their money.
if you want to make a bet about it, we can, because we can easily, what we can do is we can use ADS-B flight tracks because ADS-B will show the speed at every point along that track. And there's routes that fly over between where the plane will fly directly over known locations, like known cities. And we can compare that speed that's reported by ADS-B to that distance on Google Maps. And if we can even find one where there's like the 5, like a street road that goes between them, we can compare that to the distance just driving it in your car with the odometer. Obviously,
You can't just drive on roads.
Some roads are actually very, very straight, right?
Yeah.
But dude,
there's
here's the
definitely
deal.
sections
This
of
is why I
road.
asked
There's
if you
like
guys.
sections of road through Nevada that are straight for like 50 miles.
This is why I asked if you guys had ever actually like looked into this, right? So just go pick a random.
Well, are you
flight.
willing to make a bet on it? We can compare it. How much are you willing to put into it?
It'd have to be the specifics, right? But like based on the specifics. But yeah, I'm willing to bet on it for sure. It's not and like by the way, the fact that it could in theory randomly match, according to what you guys are saying, it should match every time. I guarantee you.
Yeah, you'd have to do multiple samples, like over the course of a week.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many flights, however many it is, that take that same route. Average them.
Yeah. This is the thing, right? So like if you go click on a flight, it's gonna say like, okay, it takes off at this time and it receives it or it arrives at this time, right? You account for the you usually have to account for time zones with this, but you get the total duration of the flight, whatever. It normally will be there. You don't have to worry about it. And then you look at the distance, and then you plug the speed in. Those numbers are gonna work. Okay, so the numbers that
I'm saying though. What I'm saying is you can just take the ADS-B track because when you look at the ADS-B track, you can hover your mouse over any point along the path. It'll tell you what the speed was at that moment. And we could take a section where that flight path goes over a known section and even a section where there could be straight road. Like there's obviously there's places in Nevada and stuff where you have a straight road for like 50 miles where you can look at that and compare the speed along the way, how long the plane took, because it has timestamps from that point to the next point. See what the average speed was between those. See what distance that gives you, and then you can compare that to what Google Maps says. And then you can even go in a car and zero out the odometer and measure it along the way as well.
Okay, that's ridiculous. But like, if you want to keep acting like it's true, dude, driving on a
You
car
think that
is
wouldn't
not
give you?
reliable. Bruh, stop interrupting me. Driving on the car is not reliable. Okay.
Why not?
I want to finish. Can I finish the first point I'm trying to make? Thank you, man. Stop interrupting me, dude. I'm not interrupting you, even when you interrupt me. So it's pretty simple. Go look at if you look at the total duration of the flight. I've done this with many flights. It's always the same thing. Go look at the duration of the flight. that's like predicted before it even takes off. You see the distance, duration, you're going to get a speed. The speed is going to match that, what they're claiming that the plane's going to travel. It's going to match. The math is going to math, okay? But the problem is that flight's not actually going to take that long. So just on its face, we know that it's wrong. Or sometimes flights that go from point A to point B, then from point B to point A, right? One flight will be like take much longer than the other one. It takes an hour longer. But if you go look at the data, it's going to tell you that the speed's the same. Could the speed be the same of a plane going for the same distance but getting there much quicker?
There isn't where these planes fly at, the altitude they fly at, they cannot vary the speed that much. So they can throttle back a little bit and fly, I think 30, 40 knots slower if they're ahead of schedule and they don't want to get there too early because there won't be a gate ready for them. Or if they're running late because they got held up, they can go a little bit faster than expected, burn more fuel and get there, 10, 15 minutes faster over a 3-hour flight
They
or
can
whatever.
also change their
But
altitude based on the wind patterns, right? But you didn't
yeah, they
answer
can
my
do that
question.
too.
You didn't answer my
But
question. If a
just to be clear,
flight goes
Witsit,
the same distance from point A to point B and then point B to point A, but it says they're going the same speed, but the return flight takes an hour less, you agree they couldn't have actually been going the same speed, right?
yeah, not the same ground speed. Like that's very famous. Like especially if you fly in the wintertime between LA to New York, you're usually an hour faster flying from LA to New York than you are from New York to LA because you're fighting the winds a lot and they're worse in the wintertime. So
So you agree with
yeah.
me that when we go look online and the data claims that they're going the same speed both ways, we know that's not true though because one's getting there an hour
No.
earlier.
No, if you look at the flight times are going to be longer from New York to LA than LA to New York. And
That's
also
my
remember
point.
on the and
That's
also
my
remember,
point.
but that's because you're fighting the jet stream, which
That's my
is
point.
west to east from the Coriolis force, right?
Well, stop deflecting to red herring fallacies,
But
dude.
but one thing you should know, Witsit, is on your ticket, that departure time is not when the plane is wheels up. That's when it's expected to push back from the gate. And when they schedule those times, they're padding in like time to taxi, time to queue, because you have to queue to take off. You could be 4 or 5 planes behind on a runway. I'm sure you've flown a lot. You've been in situations where you're like there's 4 planes ahead of the plane that waiting for the runway. So they pad all of that in. So that way they have, so that they can, because they get fined by the FAA if they consistently don't meet their, their schedule. And so that's why
Okay.
there's times where you say, well, it's never the time that they say that it is. And that's just because there's lots of padding on the takeoff and the landing for exactly those reasons.
That isn't my point at all, though. Duh. Okay, but again, the question is very simple. If there's a flight from point A to point B, and then the same flight comes back from point B to point A, and B to A is an hour less, but it's claiming that both flights went the same speed, you agree that data has to be wrong, and they did not go the same speed because they went the same distance,
Well,
but
let's
it
see
took a
that.
different time. It happens all the time.
Are you saying airspeed?
I'm going to look.
Are you saying
No,
the
that's
same
what
air?
that's that.
Hold on a
No,
second. Are
that's
you
my
saying
whole
the
point.
same? Are you saying the same airspeed or the same ground speed?
Ground speed. That's my whole point. That the airspeed is varying, right? And you can't properly determine that. So it's like, thank you guys for just.
I think when you're saying speed, I think you're comparing the airspeed. The airspeeds are about the same, but the ground speeds are drastically different because of the wind and jet streams.
No, what? Okay. Airspeed is the
Sorry.
speed in relation to the static pressure around the plane. So if
I
there's a
understand that.
wind. Okay.
So the airspeed could be the same, but the ground speed could be drastically different because of the jet stream. You know that, right? It's just
Okay.
like their boat moving on currents. So they could be going the same airspeed, but traveling a lot faster or faster or slower over ground because of the currents, the wind currents.
Okay, so
So
then
they
you agree that the plane that takes an hour less to go the same distance is going faster.
ground speed, not airspeed. Airspeed could be the same. You get the difference?
I get the difference.
Okay.
I'm just talking about it. How fast it's actually traveling in the
In
world.
comparison to what? Relative
Well,
to the ground? Yes. But
what are we
I'm just
determining the
wondering if you
distance
know.
based on?
Sorry. So I'm just wondering the velocities that you're looking at. Are they air? Do you know for sure that they're airspeed or ground speed?
They claim to be ground speed. I thought that's what we were just told, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what the
Take a
globe.
look.
That's what the globers were claiming that 2 places on the ground, a certain distance apart, would be the same traveling, from the ground and the sky. That's what the globers were claiming, but it can vary depending on currents, right? Like you were saying,
No,
Status pressure,
the distance is
or even
no.
currents under the water. This is why Navy ships have to degauss and stuff. Like
No,
your
the
current.
distances, the actual distances don't care about wind speed.
Well, what I'm saying, if you compared, right, like thrust of the engines of an airplane versus the thrust of the propellers or push of the propellers in the ocean, they could be the same speed, spinning the same speed, or putting out the same RPM or whatever, right? Like, and not travel the same distance. So there's a big difference in 2 places on the ground spread apart and trying to travel between those in the water versus the air or the road. Like, there's 3 different set of equations, right? You're gonna have to
No,
apply.
I mean, yeah, that's the difference between air or water speed versus ground speed.
Okay, can we just boil this down
Yeah,
really simply?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how do we determine ground speed?
Ground speed is your position over time on the ground.
Right. So then we're going to invoke the very thing we're trying to figure out, which is the accuracy of the distance, right? So we literally use the very thing in contention. Like, if we're going to determine ground speed, we're going to be like, well, what's the total distance? How long did it take them to get from point A to point B? What was the time? Therefore, we get the speed. We get the ground speed based on the distance on the ground, which is what's in contention. So it's like,
Yeah, but I mean, you can just you can look, like passengers can look out the window and look at landmarks and then use their stopwatch to see how long they go from one
you keep on doing this
landmark to
whole
another.
people could do things, people could do things, people could do things. You could do this, you could do this, you could do this. They don't do that. People don't do that. You want to provide some actual empirical evidence that actually shows that your distances are correct, or you just want to keep playing this, well, whataboutism, and we could do this, and back in the day they did this, and it's like, bro, no, cruisers don't do that. Cruisers don't measure the speed of the water. That's ridiculous. No, they're not using cell nav in the middle of the day in a cruise ship. That's ridiculous. And no, people aren't on the ground measuring things. No, people aren't pulling their phones out in planes trying to measure landmarks to determine their ground speed either. And that's laughable and crude and wouldn't be reliable and wouldn't be consistent, and you wouldn't be able to see landmarks the entire time either.
What is he saying? That the distances are wrong?
That we have no way of actually knowing how fast airplanes fly or boats travel across the water.
No, I didn't say that there's no
between
way to
objects.
know. In theory, you could try to measure it all along its path. We don't do that though.
I might have missed something, but couldn't you? It sounded like you were saying that there's been flights where they go the same point A to point B. They fly basically the same route, different but basically where the distance and the time don't match.
It happens all the time.
Ground
Like the return flight will be much shorter than the initial flight, and the obvious answer for that is that
That's on the jet stream.
Oh, okay. But my point is, when I go to check the data given to me, it doesn't tell me what that speed is.
What?
The ground speed. You can get the ground speed
after the fact, right? Like, so what? So if it takes the globe and it's using GPS and the globe coordinates, and then along its path, it's going to say, oh, it's going this fast now. So then it just calculates it based on the distance that's in contention. That's not physically
Small
measuring the
aircraft,
speed.
small aircraft do it. If I fly 100-mile flight, I'll have at least 5, maybe 6 checkpoints, and I'll know my speed between each one. You put down your projected, and you time it, and you put down your actual, and then you predict your ETA based on that. I'll do that 4 or 5 times on a 100-mile flight.
What about north-south flights? With the Coriolis, y'all claim?
What?
Coriolis is
Yeah,
not
instead of
changing the
east to
flight
west,
time.
or instead of west to east or east to west. What about north-south flights and your calculations?
We don't use we don't take
1,000 miles an hour spin, right?
no, we don't consider that.
Oh,
You would have to go over
Right.
vast distances to really test this. Like little domestic flights in the U.S. are irrelevant, right? And so like if you want to test what's actually being asked about, then maybe the southern flights are better, right? But this is where you get into the problem where you're typically traveling over the ocean and literally measuring the speed of the plane while you're in the ocean is effectively impossible. It's not literally impossible in theory, but we don't do it. So we would never know, right? And we know actually in the south there's all kinds of crazy wind patterns and there are different wind patterns and speeds at different altitudes.
I was just on a
So it's
flight and it was giving me airspeed and ground speed on United. And it was giving me the distance traveled and the distance to where I am.
yeah.
So it does calculate both ground speed and airspeed at the
I
same
know it
time.
calculates it. I just explain. Of course it does. Why wouldn't it be able to calculate it? Like if there's 3,000 miles between point A and point B, and then based on GPS we're 1,500 miles in, and it's been 2.5 hours, then we know that means based on those calculations the ground speed would have been this at this moment, right? Like duh. But we're talking about actually verifying it. You'd have to do physical measurements from the ground.
That is how you verify it.
No, that's how you reify your model and then claim it's true because you don't understand that you're just affirming the consequent. And at this point, it's like we've said it 12 times. So.
Oh my god. But like,
You wait. Did what I just say was wrong?
Yes.
all speed is relative.
My
G,
God,
G,
you
G,
guys don't
GPS gives
understand
you
anything.
your actual position. So I don't.
Oh.
Why do you think that's reifying the model if it's
Oh,
not
so
using?
if we use the distance in GPS that uses the longitude and latitude of the globe, and then we take that distance, and then we take the mapping of the plane along the path of that distance, we can use the speed calculated from the assumed distance within the GPS model of the globe to prove that the distance is correct, because if I go look at the ground speed that I calculate using the distance, it matches. Is that your argument? Is that
Well,
actually
you
your
could
argument?
sort of.
No
You could just
GPS
use the raw. I
raw
agree that you
data.
can convert lat long, but you could just do raw Cartesian coordinates from GPS and do the math. Then you'd
Yeah,
have to like calculate each
GPS
point.
doesn't use. Yeah, GPS converts to lat long, but you're using the raw data in physical space to calculate your distance.
Calculate my distance?
Yep,
Calculate my distance from what?
from your first point to your second point.
Oh my God,
The
bro.
the distance traveled, right? Velocity is
Oh
distance
my
traveled
God.
over time.
No,
I
he's
know.
right. He's right. You don't have to like groaning like that. Doesn't
Yeah, it's
change.
No,
weird.
okay, how do we know the full trajectory from point A to point B on the GPS?
You just get the 3D Cartesian coordinates.
Oh, so I
It's
take a
not that
single
hard.
reading at a wait time out. I take a single reading at a point, and then now I know the
Yeah, you
entire
to your
path
next
from point A
point.
to
No,
point
you
B.
take them
That's not how that
all
works.
along waypoints along the way.
Oh,
Do you think your GPS live updates every time you move?
what an irrelevant question.
No, it's not.
It
You
is.
think it takes one
What
GPS
GPS
when you
does?
take off and one GPS when you land? Is that what you're thinking?
No.
Okay. So it
What
can.
it
How does
does
it?
is it takes the data, it converts it into longitude latitude system. If we're talking about an entire flight over thousands of miles, you have to put it into that system.
You don't need latitude and longitude for the current GPS model. It
You
does convert
literally
it for you.
do. No,
No.
for the context of what we're talking about, you literally do. Okay, let's just use the three axes. We're just gonna
Yeah,
throw.
X Y Z.
Okay, yeah, three axes. So we're gonna throw out the longitude latitude system. Okay,
Yep.
is the angle of the z-axis the same on point A and point B?
No, it's changed. You can map that
Oh,
vector.
oh, you can map
So
it
you
onto
get
onto
The
what?
angle of the z-axis does not change. It never changes.
right.
It's
Oh,
always it
wait,
always
but
goes the same
your
direction.
angle in relation to the z.
Yep. That's called a vector. You
Right.
can
Okay.
determine the speed between those 2 points. You can determine the distance and the speed between those 2 points.
It's just vector. It's vector addition. subtraction.
Are you
Yeah.
guys taking into consideration all the movements?
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Before
What
we
you're
go
all,
there, they're taking. I don't know how often they ping, but yeah, it's not like 100% accurate between those two positions, unless you're tracking it by the nanosecond or even smaller. But it gives you a really good estimate of your distance traveled and your velocity between those two pings.
Okay.
Here's some of the
Do you know what the
metadata.
Z? Do you know what the Z axis is in the GPS
Yes.
system? What is it?
Well, no, sorry. In the GPS, no, I don't know which direction that is, but there's X, Y, Z. You could assign any of them. I don't know what it
It
is.
runs through the poles.
It
Okay.
runs through the poles of a globe, and it actually aligns with the rotational axis.
It doesn't matter what shape the Earth
mean-
is for. It doesn't matter what the shape of the Earth is for X, Y, Z coordinates.
The Z axis in a GPS system aligns with the rotational axis, and then comes
Correct.
through the Earth to the poles.
Yeah, so on flat Earth, we would say it goes right up through the North Pole
to the South
Pole.
Wait, what's the rotational axis?
You could say it's the rotational axis of the sky.
Yep. You could assign. You could assign any axes.
You guys actually understand the difference in saying it's the rotational axis of the
Yeah, it's a
sky?
complete
You're
non
doing a red
sequitur.
herring.
Red
No,
herring
it's not.
fallacy.
No, it's not.
Yeah, you could assign any. You could assign any axes in any direction you want and still get the same math. It's just 2 points in three-dimensional space.
Yep.
Hey,
you can use
hey,
vector.
do
You can do
you
vector
understand the
addition,
difference?
subtraction. You could map the
Yep.
vector. You could map the points on a curve, and do it that way.
Yep.
But you can. This is just basic, easy vector math.
What's the difference in the rotational axis on a globe, or if you try to align it with the rotation of the sky?
Doesn't matter. Non sequitur.
Red herring.
Okay, so it's not a non sequitur. I'm sorry you don't know what that word means.
No, the rotation of the globe matters not in these axes or axes.
It's not about the rotation of the globe. It's about the axis, the rotational axis. Okay, so if we're talking about measuring distances on the surface of the Earth, to pretend that there's an equivalence between the Z-axis aligned with the rotational axis of the globe, and that's synonymous with just lining up with the rotation of the sky, is stupid. It's the sky. It's not the Earth. It's fundamentally different. It's going to give you a different angle, it's going to give you a different angle in relation to you traveling over the surface of the Earth. Do you understand that?
Oh
Let's just call it up. Let's call
This
it
is
one
ridiculous.
up axis.
All he has is "oh my gosh." Is that what you got?
Oh, you laughed not 15 seconds ago and did the same thing.
The difference is I actually give responses.
I did. Don't let me.
And look, guys, it gets worse for you. You
they
go
got
over
nothing.
over long distances as well. Short
Who's that?
distances, y'all could probably get away with it, right? But long distances, it gets
Wait,
worse
Finky,
and
why
worse.
are we arguing that GPS doesn't assume a globe?
Nobody's arguing that it doesn't.
No,
RG
Finky was
he wasn't
arguing.
talking to you.
Yeah.
It's just simply mapping it out in 3D space and calculating the distance. It's simple vector. It's simple vector math. You don't have to go to lat long for this. That's what's cool about it. It doesn't assume the shape for that reason.
Yeah, you guys got to talk to some pilots, man. Sweet, good conversation, guys. Very productive.
No, like basically, like Witsit already said that you need a physical measurement, and now you're talking about GPS again and again and not closing the topic.
Physical measurement. Wesley, can you build a
No,
15
we are talking
100
about.
mile tape measure?
Yeah, I should have got my tape measure out to measure my jet's distance movement. Good grief.
How can you do a tape measure? Okay, do you have a tape that's straight and can measure straight line?
No,
Non
we need a
sequitur.
10 mile.
You know, like
I used Jim, to be honest, I used my micrometer to measure how far the plane moved in a nanosecond.
I attached a fifth wheel to my car, and I used that to measure a distance.
but do you don't know you are going in a straight line or not, which direction you are going, because you're also using direction according to globe, east, west, north, south.
No, I was going 100% a straight line.
No, we're
You might be
GPS
going in a curve.
XYZ.
Wait, you might be going in a curve and you're accounting it as a straight line because you're using map east west.
No, I
Nope.
wasn't on a curve.
Yeah, GPS doesn't, when it's doing raw calculations, it isn't calculating east, west, north, south. It's all in XYZ 3D space.
Yeah, what? I got a question for you, Glovers. Since you're talking about math and stuff, so at what rate does the ground drop away from the plane if the plane flies level and the Earth is turning at 1,000 miles an hour?
Oh my god!
And let's do a north-south flight.
Zero. It doesn't. It's zero.
Let's say
Zero.
the
Zero.
plane is
Zero.
flying at 100 miles an hour.
You said the plane is flying level, right?
Zero.
Yeah, it's
It's
zero.
flying. Let's say level to y'all's definition.
Yep, zero. It doesn't change elevation.
Okay, when GPS, you said it's XYZ, right? Is a coordinate. So then, therefore, after it travels 6,200 miles, there should be a 3959 drop in coordinate space. Is that
God,
correct?
listen to these guys.
Right. That's my point, bro. If you
It
fly
sounds like
around the
I have
world, bro,
billion here.
you should have like 4 Earth-sized like drops between y'all. You know what I mean? Like,
Kind of
Do you
like
guys,
it's not an
agree?
exact analogy. It's not an exact analogy, but it's kind of like asking why when a boat goes on the ocean, why the boat doesn't have to nose down to avoid flying off into space because Earth is curved.
Wait, sorry, I
No,
got a
I
question.
know.
Wait.
Gravity just
Real
does
quick,
it.
I just want to know.
Gravity just does it.
No. What I'm saying is the higher you get, the worse off y'all's like calculations should get
What?
away from the Earth. If GPS like
Dude,
triangulates the
I mean,
ground
it's kind of true.
position to the sky, like it gets worse the higher you get, bro.
Yeah,
Do you agree that one quarter of the circumference? Do you guys agree that 1/4 of the circumference of the Earth would be a drop in coordinate space of the radius of the Earth?
what is flying level?
He's talking about XYZ. I don't know what you mean by drop, but
No, he does.
I think
He's correct. Good job.
Yeah,
Tyler.
I
But
think
it's kind of
so.
like saying if I drive on a road on my car around that distance around Earth, I don't think such a road exists. But if I did, you notice how I don't have to like do anything to make my car not fly off the Earth. It just gravity holds it on the road, and I just drive like normal. Planes
No, it's because of weight.
pretty
And
much work the same
no,
thing.
bro, it's because you're on a solid
Right.
medium with weight. If you're on that
What?
in the air and there's constant thrust keeping you up in the air, you see what I'm saying? Like
Wait, hold on.
below you.
RJ, I got you. I see what you're saying, bro. All right. You guys said that the GPS is just going to use XYZ,
Oh my
right?
god, this guy
So
is unbelievable.
therefore, if it is the case, right, that you have 1/4 of the arc of the circle equals the radius in XYZ drop, right? So you would be able to show that, right, on the GPS coordinate system, right? You would be able to show me that this thing actually dropped that 3959 in coordinate space, right?
Yeah, if you got the raw data, right? But most GPS
Okay,
give
show
out
it.
lat long. Hold on a second. Please don't
Show it.
interrupt. Please don't interrupt. If you got the raw data, sure. But what most GPS output is your lat long.
Just get me 2 GPS satellites, right? At one 6,200 miles away from another, and show that it's a drop of 3959 in the z-axis. Show it.
Well, it's not in the z-axis. You realize that, but you will
Yeah,
see
it
it.
is. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Well, if one of
Okay,
them is
which axis is it?
depends on where you're going from and to. Tell me where you're going from and to, and then I'll tell you how much on each
The
axis.
satellites aren't going anywhere. I thought they're geostationary, sir.
They're not. You're talking about the GPS
Okay, are
satellite?
the GPS satellites geostationary or not?
It's a red herring. Red herring has nothing to do with the topic.
Are
But my
they
point is,
geostationary or not?
Tora, my point, I don't think they are, but my point, Tora, is that it just depends on where you go around the surface of Earth to know which axis you're going to see that 3959 change in.
I'm talking
And it could
about the
be
2 satellites that are up there, sir. Are you not listening? Do you have gunk in your ear, sir?
your voice is like extra Tora today. I don't know. Do you have like a extra click on your voice changer or something?
I almost thought it was Cuddles.
Listen, sir. I need you to answer the question, okay?
I will.
don't think you're listening.
That's better. Okay.
It sounds like he's giving you a little bit of audible.
But do you agree, Elbow? He sounds like a little different. There's something.
Maybe the
Are you just trying to buy
microphone on
time, or
my
what's going on?
iPhone is messed
Okay,
up
go
or
ahead,
something,
Cora.
but sir, it doesn't matter what I sound like. It sounds like you're tactically avoiding the question for some reason.
No, it's just go ahead. Ask the question again. I thought
Okay, so we have
you,
two
Pinky. That's all different.
satellites, right? We have two satellites, sir, right? We have one at the North Pole, let's say, just for we could put them on the equator.
and it's on the
We put
ground.
the other. No. These are the satellites on the ground in your model.
They can't. Sometimes they are, but
Well, I'm asking for the ones that are in space.
okay. They're moving. You realize they move all the time. So if you put it there, it's going to move 17,000 miles an hour in some direction.
Okay, cool. So then after it goes 6,200 miles, can you show a drop in the z-axis on that coordinate system?
Well, the problem is, I think it's a good question. The problem is, I don't think that the satellite units themselves track GPS with each other. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe we could get that. But
here we go.
You're avoiding the question, sir. Do you have gunk in your ears? It seems like you need to be recalibrated.
He said he didn't know. He said he didn't know.
Wesley,
the
that's
answer was
not
the answer was I don't know.
Does he understand what an orbit is?
Okay,
Just say it's
sir.
stationary,
One
bro.
quarter of the orbit would be a drop in the z-axis equal to the radius of the orbit. Can you show that, sir?
Well, that's not technically true.
One quarter of the circumference of an orbit is not equal in drop to according to the radius
Well, of the orbit, not of the Earth.
of the orbit. Yes, can you show it, sir?
The answer's no.
I don't think we have the 3D
You're
coordinates.
done.
I don't think we have the 3D coordinates of the satellite.
What is the point of the question?
I don't know.
Tori, you need to listen to this. You need to
Here with
listen to this
by
back,
Mr.
dude.
Wesley
Your
G,
voice.
by Mr. Wesley G. Okay, we could
He's
just
playing a
use two
character.
eyeballs on someone's face here if we needed to. Okay, if we have the eyeballs on the face spread further apart than the regular person's eyeballs, you agree there is a drop in between those two eyeballs, right?
I told you, if we had the raw data from the GPS, you could do this. We all agree with this.
Okay, can I see the raw data, please?
Sure,
Well, we've
go
got raw
research
data.
it. Yeah.
Well, we have.
Okay, what is the radius of the orbit?
20,000 kilometers.
20,000 kilometers. Okay, so after this drop is one quarter of that circumference. Do you know how to figure out the circumference of the orbit from that radius, sir?
Yes.
But does he understand that?
Okay, so go ahead and give me the number of the circumference, divide it by 4, move the satellite that amount, and then show that radius drop in the z-axis.
Well, it
You're
won't
not
be
that
in the
important.
Z-axis. I tried to explain that to you.
You have to do the work, sir. You have to do the work. I'm trying to
Okay, let's get this back on track.
It's
Let's
like
get this
I'm the
back on
teacher,
track.
you're the
Cora's just-
student. Don't you want to
Cora's
learn
just
something
messing
today?
around.
You admit that you can't know anything, so it feels like you would want to learn something.
Tora, you got to listen to this back, dude. I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but it's not good,
Avoiding
bro.
the question, sir.
Okay, what were we talking about before? He bailed.
We're talking
out
about how you guys all ran away from what I was asking you about the z-axis and how it's in relation to the rotational axis of the Earth, and then you tried to pretend that you could just pretend that it was in the sky, and then you pretended that this was completely independent of the globe, not understanding apparently that it's the sign, not understanding that the z-axis is calculated by the sign of the latitude anyway.
You could arbitrarily assign the axis. It still works out.
Oh, you could?
Yes.
You could? Is that what we do?
Yes, 100%. Actually, hold on a second. This is a perfect time. It's a Kinney equivalence. Yes.
Is that's what we do? Because from my understanding, right, if I'm gonna just arbitrarily take a random point in space, I'm gonna use the XYZ, and then I'm gonna map out the path of the plane, which is what we're talking about. Just gonna cut a straight line right through the globe.
Why?
Because that's how it's.
What? Go ahead, Witsit. Explain what you just said.
They can't know things, Witsit.
Hold on,
You have to teach it to them. They can't know
hold on
anything.
a second. Tora, Witsit, explain what you just say, how it cuts a path through the globe.
Whenever you use the
GPS is based on
Pythagorean
the
theorem with
hemisphere.
Hold
XY,
on, RG, hold
if
on.
you
Go ahead
use
with
the
it.
Pythagorean theorem with the XYZ to find the distance
Yep.
from the 2 points, then it's
Yep.
going to give you a straight chord line that cuts directly through the crust of the Earth.
How?
What do you mean how?
You can
So if I
curve
have
fit it.
2 points,
You can curve it. That's correct. So wait, this guy being such a smart ass, pretending I was stupid, is retarded.
Yes.
Stop,
It won't.
stop
Well, hold on. It
mocking me.
won't. But
It
Witsit, it
won't.
won't. Hold on. It will not necessarily cut through the Earth. It depends on the distance. And
Okay,
Yeah,
but it's
if you-
definitely going to
normal
be wait,
flights,
it's definitely
I don't
going to
think
be
it
a
would.
different distance, right? It's definitely going to be different than if we map it up as a curve.
No,
what I would
that's
say
the
is just get as
whole-
many points as possible.
Yeah,
Get as
exactly.
many
This dude
points
just
as
said no.
possible.
This dude just said no.
It's the sample size. It comes down to your sample size. If you're taking,
dude
or
just
the
said no.
frequency, sorry, the sample frequency. If you do it every couple seconds, it creates a curve on its own. It's just many straight lines.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's just say we could see what it we could see what it creates, and it
Yep.
that might give us
That's
hints
true.
as to
Yes.
what's going on.
Yeah, but you
Okay,
don't.
so how do we?
Again, with it, you don't take it. You don't take a point when you take off and then when you land. That's not how they do it. They take many points during the flight. So
Okay,
that's kind of weird.
how do we get the z-axis?
It again, non sequitur. Please stop doing that.
It's not
You could
non
do it with any.
sequitur.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It's all right. We can answer the question though.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the z-axis, which is built around the axial rotation of the Earth, right? So the z-axis, if you're on the North Pole, it's your zenith, and if you're on the South Pole, it's also your zenith. So that's the z-axis. It points to two particular places in space that are essentially fixed as far as the Earth rotation goes.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole thing is that apparently we don't need the globe at all here.
You don't. All you need is the center of mass of the globe, but you do need to orientate your coordinate system, right? So that we can determine the center of mass of the globe from projectile motion. So the satellites, by observing them, not by listening to what they're saying, you can observe the motion of the satellites and infer where the center of the Earth is. And the orientation is, as Wesley said, it's kind of arbitrary, but it's convenient to pick orientations that line up with other things that we use, like the polar coordinate system, for example. But you don't need to know the shape of the Earth to determine the orientation of the coordinate system.
You just need to know the polar vortexes. And I have a question: is the XY cross section, what you're calling the center of mass of the Earth?
So the XY
In a
plane
three-dimensional-
runs through the equator.
Runs through the equator, but it doesn't include the z-axis that would make it three-dimensional, right?
So the z-axis is perpendicular to the XY. So the XY plane runs through the equator. The z-axis is perpendicular, and they all meet at the center of mass of Earth.
So on a two-dimensional graph, basically y'all are plotting what we call a hemisphere, right? Or what I would call a hemisphere.
It's always 3 dimensions, right? Because you've always got to deal with X, Y, Z in GPS.
Mm-hmm. And do y'all count the GPS like geosynchronous or whatever, the positions, and plot that against the time that it takes for these flights?
So we're talking about recording GPS tracks.
Time with GPS. Yeah.
Sorry, can you rephrase the question?
How,
I might have
how
come
is it
in on the end of
measured
this and
the
missed the
time?
beginning. So.
Because you have X, Y, and Z, right? But then you have to add that fourth dimension to make it a viable conversation that we're having against plane flights between two
right.
distances.
Yes. Yeah. So
right?
you're right.
And you add,
GPS
and
also has a time component.
basically at every nanosecond or whatever, you're taking a zenith measurement to some satellite, right, down to the plane, down to the ground. They're following the plane, right? Well, this is what they're claiming, these Glober guys, that ground position is triangulating the plane, and the GPS satellites are triangulating everything else, right? So I'm curious, how does this feed into the XYZ system? If your X and Y is the center of a globe, like in the equator, there has to be 4 dimensions here.
So every Every point on the surface of the globe approximately fits the equation that x squared plus y squared plus z squared equals the radius squared, right? So that's the equation of a circle in 3D Cartesian space. The satellite orbits also fit that pattern. At any point in time, their x squared, y squared, and z squared will equal their radius squared. And the position of the receiver is calculated using the distance based on time between the receivers and the satellites.
Right. Now, how do you actually like accurately map the ground position as far as the zenith position at every second or whatever, every foot of measurement or every yard of measurement or, I'm curious how that works because I really don't know, but I'm sure someone here
Wait,
knows.
can we? Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, guys.
No, so I'm just trying to like understand. Like, you said we don't need the globe, but we have to use the center of the globe. And like,
That's the
if
only
I
thing we
take,
really need is the center of mass of the globe and some
Okay.
observable orientation points.
Yeah, so you need the globe though.
Well, yeah, because we live on it, right? You
Oh
can't.
my God, that's what's in question,
you
right?
could
Like, if I,
you could put a cluster of these anywhere in an empty space, and
no, you can't.
Okay.
Because if you take any point, just pick any point, take a measurement of z. It's going to give you a certain amount in meters. In meters in relation to what? To the center
Yeah.
of the globe, and then you're going to add the
This is
altitude of the
okay.
plane on top of that.
It's
Okay,
just the
this is
center of
just
the coordinate.
talking over
Notice how
people.
you guys always interrupt me.
That was my bad. But
Okay,
what I was going to
so
say is it's not the center of a globe. It's the center of the coordinate system.
which is the center of the globe.
Yeah, it doesn't
Wait,
need to
hold on,
be.
Daza, isn't it the center of the rotation of these or the orbits of these satellites that we're actually measuring? Or
Yeah.
it also compares to the center of the Earth, but really it's
Yeah.
the center of the orbits.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
begging the question.
No, it's
No.
not. So you can observe the satellite motion, right? So you can observe things like the Doppler shift from multiple locations, and you can actually determine that the path of the satellite has to be circular. And I'm using circular here loosely, right? It's technically they're ellipses, but so you can determine that the satellite path is circular, and because of that fact, you can also determine the center of that circle. And that's how we determine the center of the coordinate system. So we don't need to know very much about the Earth at all, actually. All we need to know is where those satellite paths naturally center themselves.
Oh, dude, the bait and switch is insane. This started with, oh, we can verify the distances on the Earth and that it matches the globe because on the plane I can take the GPS point or like reading at any point in time, right? And I don't need to know anything other than that. And it doesn't have anything to do with the globe. It has absolutely nothing to do with the globe, but it fundamentally and intrinsically does because if I'm going to get any reading, whether z, x, or y, it's going to be a certain distance. That distance is going to be in relation to what? The center of the Earth. And then you're going to take the distance of the altitude of the plane and you're going to add that to the distance from the surface of the Earth to the center of the Earth every single time intrinsically. That's literally what it fundamentally comes down to. That's what it comes down to. It is how it works.
No, you don't add the distance of the plane to some radius. You just take the distance of the plane. That's what it is from the center of the coordinate system. Daza can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, which is going to be the distance from the center of the Earth to the surface plus the altitude. So that's just the whole entire thing in question here. Right? You guys are pretending that it's like completely unrelated to the globe, but literally you take the z-axis, which is aligned to the rotational axis, which is not straight up and down, of course. So you're taking a 23.4 degree tilted z-axis that's centered in the center of the globe, and then you're telling me that when you use that as your base, that it has nothing to do with the globe.
What does the tilt have to do with this?
Wait, time out. What?
No, this is.
So wait, it's aligned with the rotational axis, but it's not tilted.
It's pointing at
So
us.
the tilt is not important because we don't care about the tilt for this measurement.
Yeah, the tilt's only important is when you want to talk about the ecliptic plane. The
seasons,
celestially, the tilt is constant, right? It's pointing at Polaris, effectively.
The thing that's that's kind of hamstrings Globers in this is we sort of have to pretend like we don't know that the satellites are going all around the Earth all the time and that we can track where they go. And like what Daza said, we can get a reliable center of the satellites. And we don't have to rely on Earth to do that. You can just use just the satellites.
But the thing is that the part that's there's three parts to the GPS. There's the bit that's in the sky. There's the bit that you've got the receiver, and there's the bit that's in complete and total communication with them, which is giving them ephemeral data, giving them so that their actual X, Y, Z position is permanently transmitted from each of them to you as a receiver. So, and on that basis, you've got a system, a network that is in a domain, which means that even if you imagine that these things are in the sky and it's a flat world, then none of the maths makes any sense because there's nothing you can do to contrive the maths that makes it work across a flat surface.
That's just a made-up claim that you make. Like
no, it's not a made-up claim.
Yes, it is. You're random.
No, it's not made up. Why do you think? Why do you say it's made up? You don't understand it, or you just don't care to listen
probably
to
if
it?
you would shut up, you would know. Like, why would you
But
interrupt
you're a
me and
piece of
pretend
shit,
that I
aren't
wasn't answering you? Think about how weird that is. You can't even
Well,
answer
tell me how
me.
It's made up, Witsit. Be specific. Don't be vague.
You just said that there's no way to determine the mass, or there's no way to use the
No,
mass.
that's not what I said.
What'd you say?
You didn't hear me. I said that you've got an X, Y, and a Z from multiple things in a space. Okay, yeah, and they're transmitted to you, and you're getting time differentials. Okay, to your receiver. Okay, now that's not just happening to you. That's happening to everybody on the surface who can see those four things. There's no maths which correlates to all of those things simultaneously that isn't across a curved surface. If you knew any maths at all, you'd understand this.
Oh, you're saying maths.
Maths, yes.
Yeah. It sounds like you're saying mass. Okay.
No.
So, okay. So, how do you what are the altitudes? How do we determine the altitude of them? Like, how do we determine the altitude is constant, for example?
There's ground stations in constant contact with them, passing up ephemeral data, tracking them, and keep and occasionally tweaking the positions through control. Which and what's being fed to those things is their XYZ position in the domain space.
Wait, Z position in relation to what?
Everything in the system is using the equatorial plane is the XY plane, and the Z is effectively aligned with
the center of the Earth.
No, not aligned to the center of the Earth. Aligned to the axis from the center of the Earth up through to Polaris.
Yeah, the rotational axis of
think of it as an azimuthally aligned axis, the Z axis.
Yeah, the rotational axis based going down to the center of the Earth, and the altitudes are based on like radio signals.
No, they don't tell you their altitude. They tell you their XYZ position.
Okay, so in relation to the center of a globe.
Okay, yeah, to the center of the domain, the coordinate domain, which is
so
in the center.
Your argument is that if we look at the data that's run through the system that assumes the z-axis is in the center of the globe, then I can take that baseline assumption, compare the data points on the plane that also gets the z-axis that assumes that it's on the rotational axis to the center of the globe. I can then compare different points based on those two base assumptions, and then turn it around and claim that the measurement's entirely independent of a globe?
Didn't say any of that.
Well, that's what the whole conversation's about.
Well, that's not the conversation I'm having. If you've got four things floating in some spatial domain, telling you their X, Y, and Z position, and the distance to them, to them, by virtue of the fact that they when they transmit a highly accurate time measurement signal from where they transmit. Your receiver picks those up, and the time differential to your personal receiver from those multiple things effectively gives you the distances of four things. Now, if those four things are floating in space and they're sending out the same signal to everybody, and everybody gets four time differentials, and all their calculations about where they are all sit on a curved domain, then you can't pretend the Earth's flat.
Wait, how do you do the calculations without assuming spherical triggered the globe in the first place?
Because all right, I'll say it again. Four things floating in three-dimensional space, all transmitting to you their XYZ positions, and you being able to.
Z assumes the globe.
You're going to let me finish?
Z assumes the globe.
No, Z doesn't assume a globe.
No.
Z assumes the globe.
Listen to what I'm saying. Imagine an X, Y, Z three-dimensional grid. Imagine putting 4 positions in that, A, B, C, and D. Doesn't matter where they are, okay, for the sake of this conversation. Each one of those tells you where it is X, Y, Z, and from the additional information, you know the length of the line between you and each of the 4 things. You do a calculation and you work out an intersect of those 4 domain spaces as best you can to where you are. That is how you work out where you are. But you work out where you are in the X, Y, Z domain as well. And then after that, you transpose it into some meaningful coordinate system that relates to where we live.
Okay, so you're using the Z axis on the rotational axis of the assumed globe that goes down to the center of the globe, and we can
No,
use sine latitude.
You're completely missing the point I was making.
Is the Z axis on the rotational axis of the globe?
no, it's on the rotational axis of the satellites.
No, you're just
And
that's
in
just
an
circular.
EC,
You're
but hold
circular
on,
because when
Witsit,
I ask you for proof of that, you turn around and invoke the Z axis.
Nope.
in
All we're saying,
ECEF, well, hold on, Wesley, in ECEF, it's the whole point of it. It's fixed Earth. There's no rotation.
Doesn't
It's
matter.
not
It's
a
aligned
rotational
with the
axis.
axis of
No.
the Earth.
no, not the Earth. It's of the satellites, Charlie. You don't
No.
need to know the Earth. Nope.
No, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's Earth centered.
Correct.
It's
How
Earth
many
centered.
satellites
It's
are there?
Earth fixed. It doesn't matter how much you giggle like a child. It's
How
Earth
many
centered.
satellites
You're
are there?
moving away
It's
from the point I was
oh,
making.
now we got
That's it.
4 people all spiraling. You guys, according to you
I'm
guys,
not
I'm this
spiraling.
crazy, insane person disputing something that's so objectively true. It's absolutely insane.
How many
The last thing you
satellites
should
are
have
there
to
with
do is all freak out and not let me speak. So it doesn't make any
how many
sense.
satellites are there? How many
The
satellites
last
are
thing
there?
I should need 5 people to help me and dogpile you, right?
How many
Yeah, you
satellites
have.
are there?
Tora and
No,
RG did it great.
no, we haven't.
Yeah, we
So,
did.
so the Z
Man, don't
axis
invoke my
is
name, bro.
the Z
Go
axis is
ahead.
intrinsically tied to the globe.
No,
It
How
doesn't
many
matter how much you
satellites
say
are there in the
no.
GPS?
that's
So
incorrect.
you okay? Cite it.
How many satellites in the GPS constellation?
You gotta go
Cite
one
it.
at a time, please.
How
Because
many
it is
satellites in the GPS
ECEF, Earth
constellation?
centered, Earth fixed, not satellite orbit centered. Go ahead, cite it.
How many satellites in the GPS constellation? What's it?
Thanks for the random red herring. Let's go back to that.
Yeah,
Not a red
exactly.
herring. What's it?
What's it?
Not a red
What do you mean
herring. And how
exactly?
many?
It's just he's just randomly asking questions that are ignoring my point.
No. This is important for the point. How many satellites on how many orbital planes are there? Do you know?
Doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Because there are 24
The
satellites
Z
minimum on 6 different orbital axes. They're not all orbiting in one orbit like you think they are.
No, what makes you think I think that?
Because you say that they're aligned with the orbital plane, the rotating plane of the Earth. No, they're not.
What? I didn't say that. What I said
Yes, you
was
did.
that the Z is based on the globe, and that's just a fact. And what you guys are saying is no.
Yeah, because
The Z is
they're
the
orbital
center of
mechanics,
the
right?
orbit of the satellites going around the globe, and it's like
When you say it's
so
based
it's
on the,
just
I mean,
circular. You in the first part of this
Yeah, then use the
conversation,
word
you invoke.
rotational.
Stop interrupting me, dude. In the
Well,
first
if you
part of this
would say
conversation,
something
stop
logical instead of
interrupting
just
me,
if you
dude.
would say
And
something logical rather than just spurg out on stuff.
no one's spurring me out.
Hey,
That's what you're doing.
we're not gonna say that people have Asperger's, and we're not gonna interrupt. If you continue to do that, we're gonna have to moderate you.
Well, how
So
about Witsit say something short?
you guys started
Sorry.
the point by so you don't understand what you're doing on the one side when you want to talk about verifying the distances on the Earth and the plane path. You want to invoke the satellite data as this definitive baseline. Then whenever it's pressed upon, you turned around and you invoke the satellite based on the coordinate system as a definitive baseline. So it's just circular. And in every point in time, you're pointing at the same thing, which is Z, and you're claiming it's completely independent of the globe, but it's literally not. If you take the globe out, you can't have the Z in your models. It's ECEF. It's based on the rotational axis. It's based on the center of the globe.
So ultimately, right, if you're building a system around reality, it's going to have some dependency on what reality is, right? So it's I think to avoid the circular logic trap here, we can actually walk through the process of what's required to reverse engineer GPS and the shape of the Earth, right? So from one point on Earth, you can observe all of these satellites. And from that, you can infer their center of their orbit and their orbital planes. And you could put together a coordinate system based on that center and their orbital paths. Then you need some kind of orientation of the coordinate system. And, you could pick anything you'd like. You could pick one of the satellite planes as the orientation, or you could pick something else that you can see that is common to you, like Polaris, right? So you've got mechanisms just by observing.
The problem is, right, like think about hypothetically like a vortex that goes down through the center of a plane, right? And then you threw like you just randomly throw a coordinate system and right down through the middle of that. And then you had satellites moving over top of a plane and they were at an angle in relation to that central vortex. Then what you're doing is turning around and saying, hey, let's look at them. Look at the angle and the distances in relation to this Z. And you see it's on a curved path, that means it's going around the globe, verifying that central point, which we assume to be in the center of a globe. Now, if we take that as the baseline to go take other points in free space, claiming that basically verifies the Z, which goes to the center of the globe, we can then map it back through there and tell us the distances once we map it on a globe, because we take the points and then we curve it after we use like Pythagoras theorem. So
No, that's
it
not what's
is
happening.
fundamentally
It's not what it's
reifying
doing
the
at all. It's not remotely
It
what
is.
our GPS does. No, it doesn't. You don't know. You don't know how it works.
Does it use Z?
No, it derives Z from the coordinates it gets.
Huh?
Wait, what are the
What do you mean,
coordinates?
huh?
What are the coordinates?
The coordinates are transmitted from each of the GPS satellites to your receiver.
It derives Z, therefore it's using the Z axis, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, Pazder, I think he's wondering about where you get the Z axis from in the first instance.
Yeah, that's what's the point is
So
that
ECEF, the axis is aligned to the polar axis.
Oh, you're invoking the globe.
Yeah,
sure, but
So-
everything we
Oh,
describe
you could
in this
say it.
model, everything we
Are you
describe
saying
in this model in first principles doesn't rely on. You can get GPS when you're in the air. You understand that, don't you? You don't have to be on the
That's not
globe.
relevant. It's in relation
Yes, it
to
is.
the Z. No, it's in relation to the Z axis that isn't relevant. And my point is that the Z axis, in theory, could exist and it not be a globe.
How could that
Yes.
happen? How could they be in orbits?
I just gave you an example.
How could
I
they be
said
in
that
orbit
earlier
at a
on. I said
constant?
that earlier on, but obviously the mechanics of the things in orbit is what is one thing. But you can have 4 or 5 things in 3D open space using this signaling system to one thing in the middle, and it can work out where it is in the 3-dimensional XYZ space based upon the metadata that exists in GPS. That can happen.
I think what Witsit trying to say is there is a natural circumpolar vortex above our heads.
What?
No, there's not.
Already.
Except there isn't.
Look it up. Look it up.
He's
Look it
supposed
up.
to ignore
Tell
the
me
fact that the GPS satellites are in orbit, a circular orbit around the Earth.
vortexes.
Yeah, except that doesn't explain the 24 satellites in 6 different planes that are giving you information on their
You
orbit.
gotta
and what
take
they're
baby
doing.
steps with these guys. They just admitted that they invoked the globe for
So are these
ECEF.
the satellites up there? Are the satellites really? Is GPS done by satellites now or not?
Why would that and somehow be exclusive to a globe?
Because there's no way
because of
you
the
can
geometry.
Yeah.
No, but
I
wait,
know
what determines the geometry?
Oh my God! Are you gonna give
The
your
coordinate system.
stupid?
Right?
Okay, what's the coordinate system based on?
Your little flat thing that you told AI to flatten and give
It's
that
like
as
it's insane that you guys don't see it circular.
Let Dazza go ahead. Say what your point, because I want to understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So a couple of things about the coordinate system. So first of all, we can agree that by physical observation we can determine its origin, right? The arc of the curvature of satellites from any reference point on the ground, they all appear to travel around one point, right? So that's basic geometry.
Can we pause right there? Do you agree that you can have an arc over a plane? Do you agree you can have an arc over a plane?
You can, yep.
And you agree it could be in relation to like a vortex? So like if you have just imagine there's a vortex that goes down through the center of a plane, and satellites moved in relation to that vortex. You're saying you wouldn't have an arc?
The arc is a physical arc, right? It's based on time and distance and position.
But you couldn't make the mass of this work if you did that.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because what would happen is that if you've got 4 things in space above you on a plane, and they all transmit the time of transmission and their X, Y, Z position across or in any coordinate space above you, okay, and something on the ground receives 4 signals, has 4 positions in space and 4 times that it takes the signal to get to them, it can work out where it is. However, those signals cannot be sent to everywhere on the surface, and then for them to all corroborate their mathematics into one plane. It won't work.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, right? That if you take any GPS pair of GPS coordinates and use another method to measure the distance between them, it will correspond to the geometric distance between the coordinates.
It's a good point,
So,
but listen, guys, how consistent is the jet streams? It's seasonal, right?
Well, the jet streams
They're
have to do with
they're fairly consistent, right? Yes or no?
What does the jet stream have to do
Okay.
with?
Are the jet streams pretty consistent over the seasons?
No.
Yeah, I'll give you all the mechanisms you want to keep the satellites
It's a
up there.
different
I'll give you
topic.
all those
It's a
mechanisms.
I'm saying there's a physical mechanism that moves metaphysical things, and we can put
not a satellite
and we
speed,
listen, and we
not in
can
the
put
orbit that they're in.
conductive. Listen, we can put conductive metals above our heads that are very lightweight, and you call that
These are not
GPS.
conductive metals. These are
That's
not
easy,
conductive
bro.
metals.
It's so easy.
These are individual satellites sending different signals at the same time. They're different.
Oh, it's a
24
vortex,
different
bro. Live
things.
with it,
No, it's not a
please.
vortex.
Live with
Sorry. These are
All right, I want to
individual
make a point.
satellites sending
This is
individual information at the same time. You're receiving at least
because I
4
think
of them to get your position.
I think what Daz has said is important, and this is why this is kind of the case I make, because I do cite the differential GPS RTK quite a bit. You can't, so in construction they use this, and it's rated at centimeter accuracy. What that means is, like, if you send a runner out there with the rover, and he says, like, in 3D space that's where that thing is, like, you can take that to the bank at centimeter accuracy. Okay, you can't, like, that's a physical space requirement. So you can't have it where that is centimeter accurate, but also that when it shows that there's a curve over long distance, that second one is an error. Like, those two concepts they're physically incompatible.
Right, but they update by the second, right? Don't they update?
Well, like multiple times per second.
Sure.
For the RTK stuff.
So what that validates the point I'm trying to make, right? It can update itself, like it does it automatically. I'm sure AI runs this shit now.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, but my point is, go ahead.
If we ignore the actual data that GPS transmits to let us calculate our location, and just listen to the Doppler shift of the satellites, we can do 2 things. We can work out where the satellites are, but we can also work out where we are relative to each other. So if multiple people can all see the same satellite and they all measure the Doppler, they can get an idea of their physical distance between themselves. And but even without the content of the GPS signals, it actually forms a fairly crude location system. And that was one of the first ideas for how GPS might work, would be based on the Doppler shift of the signals. And that's very predictable.
Sure. Yeah.
Very precise.
And,
so they can't fake
not
that, right?
exclusive to a globe, right? Not exclusive.
No, it is, because so for one observer, you could not distinguish between a globe and a flat Earth, because all you see is these satellites traveling circular paths, disappearing into the ground 20,000 kilometers away, right? So that's the circular path.
Well, because of your perspective.
No. This is geometrically. It's physically would be happening. The satellite physically goes below the plane.
Yeah, but it's above your head at all points, right? And still, it looks as if it runs into the ground, but it never does, right? Or do satellites?
No, it physically goes below.
Okay,
you.
wait. Let me try to progress this conversation, right? Because it's like you guys are talking like I don't understand the argument. I don't think some flat earthers do. The idea being simply that if you had like 4 different satellites, you got data from each of them, so you got a signal, they have a different coordinate, right? And you take it from the same receiver and say this was going to go all over the Earth. If you take that, it's going to give you a sphere. If you try to flatten it out, it's going to distort the distances. The distances aren't going to match up with the data.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Okay. So that's true, right? Mathematically, that's true. But the issue here, right, is the assumption that that data is consistently reliable. For example, like if someone comes in here and listens to you guys, it's like, bro, I could just walk out there, not know anything, and this satellite's acting on its own, and I can just go independently verify it. But it's not how it really works in reality. That's not how it works.
But you can
Right?
verify a huge amount of this, right?
Do what?
It doesn't. Look,
You can
it doesn't
verify
really,
a huge portion of this functionality.
yeah, it doesn't really.
So, for
Can we, right?
example,
Because the receiver, when the receiver is going to determine where the GPS is, like where the satellite is, it doesn't just like consistently and reliably take the raw data and then tell it where it's at. That's not how it works, right? It runs through like an assisted GPS system, and it uses it uses the ground system based on
No, it doesn't.
it
doesn't.
okay. So you don't even know. So this is my point. I knew you wouldn't know about
so you're
it.
talking about
Well,
something
the middle of the
completely
Atlantic.
different
What
here.
ground
Witsit.
system is using in the middle of the Atlantic?
It uses an assisted ground system, which has an almanac, right? So the signals themselves, and I'm not telling you that like literally no signals ever come, right? But you have a corrective factor built in. We looked into this and we tried to go find the raw data, and what we found is that the data sets being classified as raw data actually wasn't raw, and this was discovered by students at a university that wanted to go look at the raw data to see the actual like signal times, see if there were any anisotropic signals, and the table itself that was called raw wasn't raw. So how can you guys claim to have the raw data, but like universities don't have it?
Well,
So we can get the raw
all of the
data that
algorithms for
receivers
GPS
get,
in the
right?
public domain. You don't have to pretend that no one understands this.
So
Wait,
Witsit,
can you
I've
address what I just said?
developed. So Witsit, I've developed a bespoke GPS software suite that takes raw observations from a receiver, which is basically the timing information. So the time at any point in time, it gets the effectively the pseudo range to the satellite and calculates position. But I've also set it up so that I can collect and compare signals from two different receivers that are nearby and calculate the time difference of arrival between the two receivers. And it becomes almost irrelevant what is actually broadcast, because the time difference of arrival between the two broadcasts tells you a lot. Like you can work out how far away you are from the other receiver. You can work out a lot about the satellite's path. The raw data you're talking about, I don't think you've ever clarified what the difference between what they expected and what they got was.
Oh, well, you wouldn't know that. You would need the raw data, right? So like, for
What
one, you
is the
have
raw
this.
data? What is the raw data? Specifically,
It's
what
just
is
the
the raw data
actual
you're
the actual raw data of the signals and where they're reading themselves in relation to other satellites, et cetera, and even the coordinate. So one of the things that they do, right, is like obviously this is not that big of a deal, I guess, from your paradigm, but they have like a what's it called? It's called like a table, or called like a height table correction. Have you heard of that? They have like a geoid height table or whatever. So like if you actually took if you actually took the data, it'd be off. It'd be off, but small amounts. It'd be small amounts, but it's off. And so my point is that's hard coded in. Okay, it's just an example of how like you're never.
Right?
That's the part after that we keep saying you don't have to use.
Yeah.
Like they convert to lat long, and then they try to calculate height using that. So you jump to the other part that's a red herring again.
Yeah.
No, I'm just listing off all the different things.
Okay, so don't do anything for this conversation. Don't ever mention anything for lat long and pass. Just stick to the 3D Cartesian coordinates. It'll make it cleaner.
And that's the thing.
You say stuff like that, but you don't know what you're talking about. So like, what's the ephemeris data? Don't answer for him, since he knows so much about the coordinate system. What's
it
the
tells
ephemeris
you
data?
the ephemeris data tells you exactly where every celestial body is going to be in relation to the geocentric coordinate system.
Okay. So
did I answer that correctly?
Yeah, but explain it
in the
correctly. No. We're talking
was
about
wrong?
in the context of the satellite, the GPS of the satellite.
The ephemeris packet in a GPS signal is the detailed orbital data for this specific satellite in question. It's the almanac data which goes with it, which gives you an approximate matrix of all the satellites known to that satellite, but that's a secondary thing. The two things are the timing data and the ephemeris data.
Well, yeah, but you guys keep claiming they're secondary and all this. Like, I've researched it, unlike you guys and the universities that try to go get the purely raw data straight from the satellites.
What
They
I'm talking
found out
about
that
the
what
raw
was
data.
labeled that
I'm
wasn't.
literally
You
talking about
interrupt
the
every
packet
time.
sequence.
You interrupt
What
every
is the
time.
purely raw
Yeah.
data? What
You,
is the
you
purely
can
raw?
build a
promise-
receiver
It
and
wasn't raw.
get the raw
It
satellite
had
data.
relativistic corrections applied to it because it showed anisotropic speeds of the satellite signals.
That's what it. Yeah, it does that. That's the data coming from the satellite.
Meaning
All right,
that if
NASA,
you
let's
didn't
just
make the
let
corrections, it would
Witsit go.
show relativity
Just let
wasn't true, buddy.
let's just let Witsit go back and forth with Daza. Are the two most knowledgeable people in here about this.
I'm not. I should be one of the least.
What's
But
it?
so the ephemeris data, right? It's not measured like in real time by the device, right?
No,
Right.
it
It's just
can't
like
determine its own ephemeris.
right. So it's just like it's calculated by ground stations and then uploaded to the satellites.
Correct.
And it's built on like Kepler equations.
That's the basis of it. The Keplerian orbit forms a core part of determining the orbital parameters. Yeah, but the resulting thing is a Keplerian-like solution. Yeah.
Yeah. So that uses the central point of gravity, which is obviously the globe. Right. So it uses the central part of a globe.
Yeah. So nobody's denying that the center of mass of the Earth is pivotal to GPS, because that's where, if you observe the satellites, look at their Doppler, and observe their path and work out their path from Doppler, you can determine the center of their orbital path, right? And it's
Well, good.
So you observe this path that from a point in space you can measure to be circular. So the ground station can measure their path as being circular. If you've got an arc, you can also determine its center, right? So you have all of these satellites in different planes, and they all orbit the same center. So that defines our origin.
The ground stations don't actually do that. The ground stations apply the ephemeris, which uses the Keplerian equations, right? Which has the central point of gravity. So that's my point. People make these assumptions that the satellites are just giving it, like their coordinates are just determined independent of anything else. That's not really true. The ground stations, use the ephemeris data, which has the globe baked into it with the Kepler equations, which assume a central point of gravity. So, like, if the satellite positions themselves are just coordinates that are generated by a computer model that assumes a globe, then the resulting like positions, right, X, Y, Z, will naturally mimic a globe. So the system is rigged from the start. Go ahead.
So how do they get accurate? Why is it so damn accurate then if it's all fake? That's the part.
You're using a database built on a globe assumption to prove a globe.
Yeah, but
There's
then
no
it works.
database involved. There's no database involved.
If it's faking a globe, it wouldn't work on a fake globe. It would work if the Earth was flat and they were faking a globe. It wouldn't work.
Well, no, you mean if you were to be doing something over a flat Earth and then taking all the data and running it through multiple globular corrections and assumptions to then match it to the globe? Like, do you not understand? It works after the corrections. It's just like claiming that the satellites prove relativity after you make anisotropic corrections to them. It's stupid.
But if you say, but hold on, this is my point earlier. If you say they make corrections to it and then it works, and when it works, it plots a curve, and that's centimeter precise, like you backed yourself into a corner I don't think you can get out of.
What? No, I disagree.
He's talking. I think you're talking about the arch in the sky, not the arch on the ground.
That's the point is that the flat earthers get tricked all the time into yielding stuff they don't have to yield. The arc is built on the ephemeris data.
No. The arc is measured. The arc is measured and turned into ephemeris data.
Well, that's what you're saying, but the ground stations.
That's how they do it. The ground stations observe the satellite, they measure its position, and they tell the satellite, this is what your path is.
Yes, that's right. They take the signals. They then are going to make sure that it coincides with the ephemeris data. So let's just use our mind for a second. If there was a discrepancy from point A to point B, right? in that moment, what would the ground station need to do to get the quote unquote accurate output that matches the ephemeris data, which again is going to give you your Kepler equations, i.e. your orbit based on the center of gravity, i.e. the center of a globe. If the data didn't measure that, you're claiming it measures it, okay, it's going to get data, I agree, right? But if that data doesn't match the ephemeris data, it's going to just correct for it. This may sound conspiratorial and there's no way it can be true. A university literally went to go pull the raw data from a satellite because they wanted to see if the signals were direction specific, if they were anisotropic, right? Because they were looking into the relativistic, the claim that it's like it verifies relativity basically. And what they found, which upon investigation was that table that they were given as the raw data already had corrections applied to it because the signals were anisotropic.
This is
Okay,
hogwash.
so
The raw
This is
data.
absolute
Be
hogwash.
very
we've
specific.
already cited it. We've already cited it's publicly
The
available
ephemeris
source.
data that's passed from a satellite is right ascension, declination, distance, and relative velocity. That's it. There's no correction going on the GPS satellite. None at all.
Do you not understand that if those data points don't match the ephemeris, you would have to make a correction if you wanted it to match the
What do you
ephemeris?
mean you'd have to make a correction that one don't match? This is calculated on the deck, transmitted up to the satellite, and transmitted to
No.
you. Yes, it
No.
is.
No.
Yes,
Ground stations integrate the ephemeris data.
Yeah, and they pass it up to the GPS satellite to pass to you.
After it goes through the ephemeris data.
Wait, they pump up the ephemeris data every 2 hours. They don't do it instantly.
They physically measure the ephemeris. That's the job of the ground station, is to physically track the satellite, right? They measure the distance to it, they measure the angle, they measure the velocity, and they do it from multiple locations. And they precisely calculate the path of that satellite. They turn it into an ephemeris and they push it to the satellite.
Okay. Yes, right. So the satellite, okay. So you have it's gonna supposedly calculate its 3D position, right? And you're claiming it
That
just
satellite
uses the
knows
time.
nothing about its 3D position. All it knows is time.
I know. Oh my god. I didn't say the satellite knew anything. So yeah, exactly, the time. So it's just going to use the time it takes for the signal to arrive. A GPS receiver.
The ground station doesn't care, or it does care, but the ground station is correlating the GPS time, so what the satellite's transmitting, with its physical measurement of its position.
Okay, a GPS receiver cannot calculate the 3D position using just the time for the signal to arrive. So if you agree
No, I'm talking
with that,
about the ground station,
if
not a
you
receiver.
agree with it, okay.
There's three
So
things
there's
here.
two things in place here.
You're smushing two things together. Uplink,
So when I say
downlink, thing in the middle.
Okay. Okay, ground station receiver satellite.
No, ground stations transmitting architecture that tracks them and then sends signals up to them. The GPS satellite is the dummy in the system.
Okay, what is the point?
Well, you said correct. There's corrections that go on, from the
No,
raw
yeah,
data.
because the ephemeris data is not measured in real time.
What are you talking
And
about?
he's just claiming it is. It isn't.
Yeah. So as the satellites pass over the ground station, the ephemeris is calculated and pushed up to the satellite. The satellite then broadcasts that ephemeris until it gets another update.
Right, I agree with that. That's my understanding too. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So right.
Okay.
So it's like it's a mathematical prediction calculated by the ground control station.
Yes.
Right. Okay, and then it's uploaded to the satellite.
Yes.
Okay, that predictive math is explicitly built using Keplerian equations, which inherently assume a central point of gravity.
Yes, because we can measure that central point from the physical path of the satellite. We can observe the path of the satellite and infer the central point based on its path.
The satellite positions themselves are going to be generated by the model.
No. You get the point, Witsit. We can actually physically watch the satellite, physically determine where it is, independent of anything it's transmitting, and we can determine its path. Once we know its path, we can then turn that path into a predictive ephemeris.
Okay, so from my understanding, the way that it actually works, because this is just like what happened when we were talking about the speeds and all this, right? We could look at the speed of the water or whatever, right? It's like the way the satellites actually work in practice are how I'm explaining it, which is that the ground station takes the signals, right? It implements the ephemeris data based on the Keplerian equations, then it sends it back to the satellite. And that's how it determines its position.
It's not taking any data off the satellite. It's passing data to the satellite.
Huh?
What? You're saying there's no input of satellite data into the ground station?
They're tracking them. They're not interested in
Okay.
they're not interested
They're
in
tracking
receiver.
them and their
They're not
time.
interested in the receiver bound information coming from the satellite.
Stop pretending you're rebutting me by bringing up something I never said. Okay, so there's data input to the ground station from the satellite that's run to the ephemeris data, which uses the Keplerian equations that's sent back to the satellite.
Yeah.
Right?
So they take the satellite's time, they physically measure its position independently, and they work out what the ephemeris is based on the satellite time. And they push that back to the satellite, and that's how everybody else works out where the satellite is as a function of time. Yes, it's based on Keplerian stuff and Newtonian physics. There's probably some relativistic corrections to make the ephemeris stick as well, but ultimately you end up with an ephemeris that's the result of determining the satellite's time and position from the ground station, not anything about the satellite's prior knowledge of its position.
Well, yeah, because it broadcasts like a timestamp.
Yeah, the whole signal is time encoded.
Timestamp, and then it's
So
got like some random code, whatever.
Yeah, the whole thing is embedded in a pseudo-random code, which is time synchronized. So at any time you lock onto the signal, you can determine the satellite's time, basically.
Okay, so in order to turn that raw time into a 3D path, then it has to use the ephemeris.
No. So the receiver has to use the ephemeris so this is an end user has to use the ephemeris and the time to determine the position of the satellite. But the ground station physically measures the position of the satellite and
So you're
using
saying
the
that this
satellite
is,
time calculates an ephemeris to push to the satellite.
so you're basically saying there was no raw data coming from the satellite. It's got to be refined, basically.
So the raw data coming from the satellite is a pseudo-random coded stream of ephemeris data, timing information. It's got some ionospheric and tropospheric correction factors. There's a whole bunch of information in the navigation messages, and the receiver may or may not use those.
I got you.
Well, you're
Okay,
saying that
I
it
have one
physically
quick.
measures the satellite's position to create the ephemeris?
The ground station does, yes.
Right. Okay.
Not
So
the end user receiver. The ground station in the control control segment.
Okay, and then the end user
Yep.
just has the ephemeris built in.
Yeah, so they can either get the
It's going to
ephemeris,
multiply
like you were
by the
saying before.
ephemeris matrix or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So you take the ephemeris. It's an equation basically that defines the satellite's path. You plug in time, you get your XYZ coordinate pops out the other end,
Okay, so
and
then what
velocity
you're
as well.
I posted
so
my
then
baby
if the ground
Sharin
stations
feed.
are the ones generating the coordinates, then the entire GPS framework is like bound to the ground data.
Yes.
So it's completely eliminating the idea that the receiver is making like an independent measurement of free space or anything.
So the receiver's making an independent measurement of its position relative to all of the other transmitters.
But it just uses the ephemeris data anyway.
Yeah, well, that's how you do it, right? So this is the process
Yeah.
inside the software, right? You take the ephemeris data, you work out where the satellite was, and then at the time that you received its signal, you take the time difference between you and the satellite and work out how far away it is. You do that for 4 satellites, and you're able to solve XYZ for you, knowing XYZ of all the satellites and their time.
Yep. Hold on. I have a question? I'm curious. So what about the consistent movement of the ground, right? Versus geosynchronous satellites or geostationary satellites, right? And my question is, isn't there like a handshake process that happens between all of these ground stations, like constantly all the time, like to keep up an exact height and downstream as far as X and Y and Z goes, right? Like, isn't there a point where these certain ground stations lose contact with satellites momentarily?
Oh yeah, yeah. They
And then
don't.
have
They only need
to pass it
to
off?
watch them as they pass over. So it's a brief thing. They watch the satellites transit and record them and upload, and they don't see them again for
Radio
another
cut.
12 hours, right?
I read somewhere where they're updating the ephemeris every 2 hours.
Okay, so look,
Yeah, there's
so
lots of ground stations. Yeah.
the ground station coordinates are going to use the WGS84, right?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, so they do. Yeah. So but here's the thing, Witsit, right? If you can demonstrate that the XYZ coordinate system is rectangular and square, you can then measure every point on the Earth in that coordinate system, right? And then you turn that into the WGS84 ellipsoid. So the existence of the ellipsoid, WGS84 ellipsoid, is not dependent on prior knowledge of the shape of the Earth. It's because the mechanism they've actually got, it's really, and I'm going to hate myself for saying this because it kind of sounds circular, but so when they first built GPS, some of their estimates were quite raw because they didn't have this detailed information about the orbits and the shape of the Earth and the position of the ground stations. So over time, they've actually been able to refine it. It's only minor refinements, but so things like determining the center of mass of the Earth, the exact position of all of the ground stations, it has been, I guess, optimized over time. It's only very minor adjustments from their initial estimates, but essentially it's a self-optimizing system. That the better precision it knows about itself, the better precision it can then generate down the track, if that makes sense. Like if you're measuring something and you did a rough initial measurement and you're able to calibrate your measurements and then you go and do another measurement and you get a better one, you end up with a much more precise measurement of what it was you're trying to measure in the first place.
This is going to come
GPS
down to
satellites,
like who had the first satellite up there, how long were they up there, and how long did they refine it prior to it being publicly accessible and then further refined. And it, so I can yield it. Even if I yield it, though, the thing is, right, my understanding is every single corner I turn, I see a globular assumption, right? Like if I go the ground station, it uses the WGS84, right? So longitude, latitude, and its altitude.
no, you don't need
relative
to use
the
that.
globe.
No. It would be working directly in ECEF, right? That's the basic maths of GPS is in the ECEF. It's only after you've so you imagine taking a 3D scanner and scanning it in 3 dimensions, scanning a sphere, right? You get all of these XYZ points that define your sphere. Then you can say, right, I want to do a lat long coordinate system. We'll nominate this as the top of the sphere, put our axis through there, and we'll do a lat long elevation coordinate system on this sphere that we've measured in ECEF.
Part of the Mallorca
In practice,
Island.
that's not how that worked, right? I mean, the WGS84 long predated this. The ground station's assuming that coordinate based on the WGS84, which obviously, that's accomplished over the course of decades of centuries. So
yeah, well, they didn't build
and
GPS to find the Earth
to,
was a globe, right?
I
to
agree.
say this right quick, to your point where you were saying that these ground stations do a handoff, you don't see it for 12 hours. If
All right.
Lost you there, RG, I think.
So anyway, like my understand, right? And then also like if you have and like look, I'm fully open to looking more into this or even conceding that I'm wrong at some point or whatever. So like the ephemeris data sent from the ground station has like multiple different parameters that are all based on globe and the orbit in relation to that globe, right? Because they're like Keplerian orbits that are in relation to the center of mass. So like you have the radius of the orbit, right? Like even like an ellipse.
Yep.
And then you have the like the what's the word, like eccentricity, or the curve of the orbit, right?
Yep.
And then you have like the tilt angle.
Yep.
The inclination, I guess. Right. And so like, but all of these things that are built into the ephemeris data is obviously like it's all based on the globe.
It's based on the center of mass of the globe primarily, and observable facts about the orientation of the Earth relative to the rest of space.
Well, we're gonna disagree on that part, man. You know what I mean? Like,
So
obviously,
of course, the people that put the satellites up, like 100% of them know like the mechanism they use and the process they use to get the satellites up and to know exactly where they're going to be is based on Keplerian orbits.
Of course.
And I go back to everything you've said. If there's assumptions of globe baked in, then it would make if you plot the surface of Earth in somewhere that's flat, like the salt flats, if you plot it and it's curved, and if you're saying, well, that's because it's baked in, then what that means is that is wrong. That you have an 8-inch per mile. That means you have an 8-inch per mile square error that then would show up when people use this for construction projects, but they don't. It's accurate.
Not how that would work at all. Construction projects?
Like why
are you
wouldn't
kidding me? Construction projects, dude. Oh my god, bro.
Yes.
Like that's such
RTK,
a minor
What do you
thing,
think
bro.
they use?
Like,
what do they think they use RTK for?
It's such a minor thing. So it's not going to help us at all. We need vast distances. This is the thing, right? The ground station tracks a path. It converts that path into a spherical orbit, so into spherical orbital math. It uploads it to the satellite. The satellite beams it down to a receiver. When the receiver uses the data, it's just using the spherical model that's generated by the ground control.
Yeah, but it's not the spherical model of the Earth. It's the spherical orbit of the satellite.
Yeah,
in relation to.
But are those 3D coordinates then? Are those wrong? Are they incorrect 3D coordinates?
Well, what we would need, right, is unimpeded access to the actual raw data.
Why?
That doesn't run it through like the assumed coordinate system, wouldn't we?
Why?
Because if you're taking it and transferring it into a globe and then sending it up using the assumption it's orbiting around the center of the mass of a globe in a Keplerian orbit with an inclination, a tilted angle in relation to that, then you're just taking the data, baking it into a globe, shooting it back out, and the people are running around saying, I can hold this receiver and look, it matches the globe. Of course it does. It would have never even gotten to you. It would have never even gotten to you if it had not already been translated into that math.
I get that. So that's why I'm asking you the question. That's why I'm asking you the question. So because it sounds like what you're saying is you think then that the 3D coordinates are wrong.
Yeah, like in terms of like the totality of Earth. Yeah, they would be wrong. Yeah.
Okay, so you couldn't have centimeter precision. So this equipment could not advertise itself as centimeter precise.
Why not?
Because it has an error in it.
What?
Because what you're saying is there's a curve that's forced into this. Like if you go do this at the salt flats, it's going to show a curve of 8 inches per mile squared. So if I go to use that on my project and I'm expecting to get an exact value, centimeter precise, I'm not going to get it, right?
No, not right. Because by the time that your receiver gets it, it's already been corrected for. And like you're talking about like in construction, you're talking about small distances.
No, large distances.
20, 30, 40 kilometers.
They're not rated centimeter accurate for like 10 feet. They're rated centimeter accurate over large distances, miles and miles and miles, enough where you'd be able to see Earth curve.
That's not the point, though.
The key is that
the whole point.
The key is that even whatever coordinates it's passing up to a handful of things that exist in the space above you, there is an algorithm on your receiver you can see, which is taking those those 3-dimensional positions Each one is a subsequent time differential and working out a position on the surface. Everybody can't corroboratively do that without it manifesting as some indication of what the surface is.
Yeah, and you can actually do this, right? This is my next experiment that I'm building at the minute. So you take 5 or 6 receivers, accurately measure their separation in the ground. So put them in a matrix of 3 by 3, 100 meters apart each, and then record the GPS signals and play them back. And you'll find a couple of things. I've only done this with 2. But first of all, you find is that all of those receivers will get the identical signal. There'll be no difference in the signal that they see other than the time of arrival. And from the time of arrival difference, you can determine that the satellites need to be where they say they were, because there's no physical way to fudge the time of arrival and have it consistent across your known distance on the ground, which is what Finky's saying with RTK. That's effectively doing that all the time. That you have a known location and or multiple known locations relative to each other, and a receiver moving around that is working out its delta to those known locations based on the satellite signal it's receiving. And that cannot function if you are not getting a coherent signal that matches the true geometry of the surface that you're on.
Yeah. Isn't it? So what it comes down to, doesn't matter what the coordinates are, if they're consistent to everyone's position on the surface and using the math that's baked into the receiver, which doesn't do anything fancy like try and cajole this back into a flat plane, which it doesn't do at all, then there's only one conclusion from it.
Okay, so I just want to reiterate this because this is how this all started, talking about the flight path, right? You have the ground station, right, which it's baked in with the globe coordinates of WGS-84, right? That calculates the satellite path using the orbital math around a sphere. Then it uses the ephemeris data, uploads it to a satellite, which broadcasts it down to a user, right? And then that matches the pre-calculated grid of the globe. And then you're taking the flight path and you're going to draw a line that perfectly matches the globe, and you're going to claim that proves it's a globe, when that was already baked in long before the receiver on the flight.
I love the way you miss out the bit about time differentials and how you calculate the ground position based upon those with respect to a coordinate system bound by the 4 objects or multiple objects. I love the way you miss that out.
Wait, tell me. So we can all agree that what I just said is true, though, before we move on to the new point.
One more thing about that, Witsit, that you also forgot to mention that the even though they use Keplerian orbits to describe the ephemeris, it is physically measured as that path. It fits a Keplerian orbit, right? So that's the only way they can use it to describe it, because it actually is traveling in that path.
Well, it takes it, then it runs it to WGS-84. So, I mean...
No. You can do this from any point on Earth without knowing where you are. You can observe the satellite's path, and you can fit a Keplerian orbit to that path based on measurements of its position and velocity as it goes past you, without the coordinate system relying on...
How determines velocity?
They use laser ranging and stuff like that to determine the velocity, and they've got very high precision methods of determining to millimeter accuracy where the satellite is as it passes the ground station.
I don't know much about that.
Even Doppler will give you the position down to velocity down to a few meters per second.
Okay, I'll have to look into the veracity of the velocity claim, to be honest. I mean, what I find at the end of it, like, every time I look into every detail of this, like, I find out that it's being misrepresented on its face by people in here, and it's like, I don't know why. I don't know if it's, like, I will say you're the most knowledgeable I've heard maybe of it, but, like, it's like, when someone points out that there's like spherical assumptions baked in and people laugh and mock them and claim that's not true at all, that's just blatantly dishonest.
But no one's done that here tonight, have they?
Yes, they did. That's what started this entire thing.
Who did?
That's what started the whole conversation. There were like 5 people doing it.
No, they weren't. So, but no one's suggesting that the whole mechanism is based upon the geometry of the reality we live in.
Yeah, that was the whole claim. It had nothing to do with the globe. Don't need the globe at all.
The calculation
I actually
for the
still
free
stand
space
by that.
points in space.
There you go.
Can
You
be,
guys got to duke it out at this point. Pafinki and Pazza, let's hear you go.
No,
Go.
we agree. It's easy. My point from the beginning is that it's ECEF. It's not lat long. It's ECEF. 3D.
It's not based on the
Cartesian
globe. Pazza
space.
says it is. Yep. Go ahead. Debate
the
it.
calculation will tell you where you are in 3D space. It doesn't have to be on the surface. It's not contingent on the globe under your foot.
Oh, so it's not you don't need a globe.
You do not need a globe. You need a center. You need a center of mass that the satellites go around. And
What's that?
like
What's
I said
that?
before,
What's that?
you can watch
What's
the
the center of
satellites.
mass?
Watch the center point. Let's call it a center point.
Oh,
What
yeah,
is
you
it?
need the center.
What is it? What
Center of
occupies it in
mass.
reality? What occupies the center of mass in reality? Pazza said this is in reality.
What occupies it? There's a little gremlin that lives there. I don't know. I've never been there.
Yeah, dishonest. You can't even be honest, dude. Why don't you just answer the question honestly? What occupies
you
the
want me
center of
to?
mass that these satellites are revolving around?
It doesn't matter. Actually.
In reality, sir, can you stay in reality or not?
You don't need to put a globe there. You just need something.
Oh, so you don't need any mass there. Okay, thanks.
All you need is a point that the satellites orbit around.
Okay, does that point have to have mass?
Not for kinematics, no.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit. It's a little bit misleading though to say, you can, of course you can predict the orbital. You can predict the instantaneous position, like where it's at in the sky, and then conflating that with its orbital position over time without having the Earth's mass as a globe.
Well, the Keplerian orbits don't use
the globe. Yes, they do. The Keplerian orbits, which is where you're talking about the ephemeris, it absolutely does use the center of mass, which is the globe. And then if you even look at you guys are invoking time.
I agree with the center of mass part.
Now you guys are invoking time differential, right? Like the Lorentz system used time difference between the signals, right? And their entire charting was completely flat, and they map precise time arrivals.
That was a two-dimensional system, right? That's the other thing with GPS, right? That to get precision in all dimensions, which it does, you need a distribution of sources that have a similar geometric separation. So you cannot get accurate height information if everything's on the ground, which is why Loran only gives that long. It's basically working out distances along the surface, whereas GPS works in 3 dimensions. And it relies on having a good 3-dimensional distribution of satellites for that to work.
But you see how much we've now boiled the conversation down to if it's a globe, only height of the satellites to work. That's not the original claim, because it was just that the time shows that the distances can only work on the globe. That's not true. The Lorentz system used time differential, and it used a 2D grid, right? Which in everything was flat. The receiver math was flat.
That's
the charts
Loran,
were
right?
math.
It's a different.
But how much
it's
time
not different.
difference?
It uses signals. They're transmitters that were located on the ground, right? They used the signals and the time differential, and it gave you incredibly precise positioning just using the deltas, the change and difference in the time signals, right? And it's all mapped out flat. So now we're claiming so we agree that we can use signals and time differential over great distances, and we can map them out. It's incredibly precise on a flat Earth. So this claim that the time signal differential can only work if the Earth's a globe isn't true.
It's not the claim. The actual solution to the geometric position in GPS is completely different to the one in Loran. You get a 3D coordinate position as a geometric consequence of the system, and Loran you can't compare them the same way.
Well, Well, okay. Before we get into the height, we can concede though that the actual precise positioning on the Earth itself over a flat Earth using the time differential worked and was precise.
The Larone's basically giving you the distance from the transmission sites, right?
Say again?
The Laron system basically was working out the distance between you and the transmission sites based on time difference of arrival and a vector. And then they mapped that.
Yeah, and they mapped it out to like relative positioning and all kinds of things. They did all kinds of things. They started mapping out entire graphs. So then they used the previous data sets. So like,
So
okay.
it's also affirming the consequent, right? It's assuming
Well,
the
no, I'm
shape
not
of the Earth
invoking this to
calculates
prove the
based.
flat Earth, though, right? Like what I'm doing is saying this claim that like the time differential of signals can only work and they prove it's a globe, which you're saying you're not saying that. Well, I've heard it said many times. That isn't true. And people usually mock and laugh at the Loran system when brought up by flat earthers. It's extremely relevant to this conversation. So now we're just claiming that like the height variable is only attainable, which of course with a 3D coordinate system. But again, we're going back into, well, how is that 3D coordinate system actually attained? And then we get back into the ground station, right? And assuming the WGS84 in relation to the signal, running it through the globe coordinate system, then you have the ephemeris that's going to use the Keplerian orbits that are in relation to the center of mass, which is the center of the globe, is going to send that up to the satellite, which sends it back down to the receiver. It's all baked in. When that person is then looking at its relative positioning on the surface and the distances based on millimeter precision, that doesn't matter. Yeah, our signals and our receivers that detect the light, the speed of light, the receiver duration, the receiver detecting like the duration of signal is much more precise now. So that's completely inconsequential to a globe.
Well, it is because it maps. If you use the GPS data and you go on a flat surface, like I said, it's gonna report back in 3D Cartesian space that you're traveling over the surface of a curve.
Of course, it's gonna do that.
I know you can't, but you can't say that on the one hand, it's incredibly accurate and you can use it if you need centimeter precision, and then also say that's wrong. It's not actually curved. That ground is actually flat, and that equipment is malfunctioning and giving you a false representation of reality. You can't have both of them. You got to pick one of them. And you're choosing to say that the equipment is not accurate. That's your take.
What? No, you're wrong. The data is run through the correction tables. If we're let's just use that phrase, prior to that guy on the construction site getting anything, you claiming like, oh look, it's mapped out on a globe is not relevant at all. It is a non-point.
Maybe let me say it again. What I'm saying is if you get this equipment and you drive across the salt flats, after all the corrections come in, it's going to tell you the true shape of that ground is curved at 8 inches per mile squared. And that is relevant because that's what the equipment says. The centimeter precise equipment.
No, it's not
says
though. In reality, it's not actually.
8 inches.
No, just because it says something doesn't mean
so
anything.
the equipment has an 8 inch per mile square error in it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, of course. Well, no, yeah. In reality, if you measure it against the physical reality, this is why I pointed out that on an actual construction site, we don't do that. We build things in small increments, and we do everything as though it's flat. And we actually use plane surveying to do it anyway. But here's the other thing, right? Like,
why would people use RTK? Why do you think people would use this RTK technology?
Well, it's useful because it's going to help us determining our position, right? No one disputes that it can help that mapped out on the map. You act like people don't understand that we've taken the data, ran it through, and the WGS84 is based on actual measurements with plane surveys that are stitched together and corrections are made. And what, like, yeah, it's useful.
Why would you? If you?
No, WGS84 is not based on plane survey.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It is not.
Literally, it is.
WGS84 is derived primarily from satellite measurements these days.
Oh, you said these days. Okay. Yeah, we built a WGS84
it's a red herring. It's a red herring anyway.
No, it's not a red herring.
If somebody goes to use this equipment, this RTK equipment, and they wherever they're doing it, it doesn't have to be in a flat place, but they have an expectation that if I send the rover out 3 miles away and it tells me that my 3D, my coordinate in free space is X, Y, and Z, that's not going to have an error in it that has 8 inches per 3 miles squared.
Okay, what's the practical consequence?
That when you use this equipment, if what you're saying is correct, then every mile you get away from the base, you're going to have an 8 inch per mile squared error.
But what's the practical consequence?
That's what it is. Error.
No, the answer is nothing, because if I'm actually building something in construction, doesn't matter if I go 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 miles out, whatever. I'm building in small segments that are planar. We connect them. You guys claim that the Earth's just so big that gravity's automatically correcting for it as I do it. I treat it as though it's horizontal. I connect small line segments. In practical reality, it means literally nothing.
Okay,
and this
so
is the
what
other
you're
thing
saying
about.
is useless equipment. That's what you're saying.
No,
Like,
no, because it still
use this
helps you.
equipment
It
'cause
still
it's
gives
bad.
you distances and position. So
But it has error.
You're the one that can't seem to follow what I'm saying. It's not my problem. The other thing is that with Loran, it did map it out 2D, but you guys understand that it also did determine like 3D altitude of things, right?
No, Loran
Like
did not.
Not accurately.
Yes, it did.
No, it did
Yes,
not.
it did. Like for
No,
example,
it did not.
like the altitude of an aircraft.
It did not.
No.
Yes, it
It
did.
did not.
Yes, it did.
It did
Yes, it
not.
did.
I
No.
used it.
Well,
I
let me
used it.
not.
let me enlighten
I
you. Let me
used it.
enlighten
It
you.
did not.
You didn't use anything. An airplane, thousands of feet in the air, is further away from the ground transmitter than a ship, thousands of feet away on the water, right?
Not that much, though. Not much.
Oh, so it used mathematical correction factors to calculate the difference in 3D space between those two things. I know this for a fact. I looked into it many years ago. You guys just say things that aren't true. So
Right, but
tracking
that's
objects in 3D
using-
spatial
that's
distances
just
does not
different.
require a globe. It does not require a globe.
Actually, Loran does require a globe, but that's another whole issue.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it was all mapped out flat.
Literally, it really does.
It was
No,
all mapped out flat.
Loran in aircraft did not report aircraft altitude. Loran was primarily for submarine navigation, where they would bring the antenna above the water, and then we know the elevation of the top of the radio antenna because it's at the water. But Loran did not report aircraft elevation. Did not. That's a fact.
Okay. Do you agree that the Loran system could correct for distance differences based on altitude? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, so you're wrong, because I've seen it done, and it was done in war. Okay. So I don't really care if you just passionately claim it isn't true and then deflect
the
to
Luftwaffe
submarines.
doing
Nobody
it.
cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
The Luftwaffe weren't working out their altitude using the Loran signaling, were they?
No,
Do what?
traditional land does not calculate nor correct for altitude, because Loran is a ground-based hyperbolic system with all its transmitters seen on the Earth's surface. The geometry of the radio waves cannot calculate a 3D position. It only provides 2D longitudinal coordinates.
No.
Yeah,
The
'cause you get
output, the output is that the signal itself can interact with anything.
the time difference of arrival.
Why didn't it output altitude? It didn't have altitude. It was incapable because the broadcast source and receiving location were at nearly the surface at all times.
And
They were at
the
nearly
intersection
the
point where the
surface.
time difference arrival matches your thingo is not a point either. So Loran gives you the solution to the Loran distance time difference arrival is it a hyperbolic curve? I don't know, but
Yes.
you get a point on a curve, right? So you cannot determine your point on that curve without other information.
Which is why you need 2 Loran stations.
Okay, but wait. Okay, the whole point is that you guys were pretending that using time differential to determine positioning was exclusive to using the XYZ of modern GPS satellites, which is patently false. And the Loran system was able to precisely determine location
How precise?
using precise enough that you could go to war. Precise enough we used it in war. You think that the precision is exclusive to sphericity, or is it maybe exclusive to the fact that now we can actually detect and measure light way more sensitively?
During the war, they used 2 stations on the mainland Europe, and they flew a plane in a direction, and they lined them up, and they got the signal overlap. And when they knew they were tracking the right thing across the North Sea,
Answer the question, sir.
when they got near enough to the city, they got to a lower altitude. They saw the lights of the city, and they bombed the fucker.
Okay, can you answer Witsit's question now, please, sir?
What's the question?
We could determine location precisely using just simply flat projections and time differential with Loran system.
How precise was Loran?
That's irrelevant.
It is relevant.
Why use a flat projection?
If it was
Just use
relevant,
flatness.
It was
saying
it
the
was,
word
it
flat
was
projection
it
just
was
means you're
accurate.
admitting the globe.
You couldn't
Loran
work
was
out a coordinate in 3D
What?
space
I'm
using it.
admitting the glow. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my
Loran was
life.
accurate about a quarter mile.
Is anyone
Okay, here's
going
the
to
deal.
answer the
Here's the deal.
question?
You guys seem to get lost in the
You can't
conversation
work
because you
out your
guys are
exact
you always
position
just
in
shucking
3D
and jiving.
space using Loran's system.
Oh, I bet
You're the
five
one that
people
said
all.
flat
You
projection,
guys run
moron.
out of time.
Five people all at one, they're going to win. So what this started as was you guys claiming falsely exclusivity of a 3D axis with a GPS system, assuming the globe Earth is what is needed to properly
That's the only way it works.
determine location, which is what is needed to properly determine location based on time differential of signals. You're patently wrong. That is incorrect. This was done many, many years ago with the Loran system. It uses a 2D flat projection. Everything about it's flat. The charts are flat.
Yeah, it was
Everything is
accurate to a
flat,
quarter
and it
mile.
uses
Yeah.
time differential.
Work out a 3D position, then, can you?
Wait, a quarter of a mile over the
So
course
does
of hundreds of
cell nav.
miles.
Cell nav
You
requires
can't work
time
out
too.
your altitude in the war using the system the
Yeah,
Luftwaffe
yeah.
used.
Okay,
Yeah,
so instead of
celestial
anyone in
navigation
this
needs time
room
too.
honestly
There, with
conceding that the person was wrong that said that, you guys all unanimously shifted over to a different claim about the altitude of something, right?
Well,
right.
So
that's the measurement
that's
in
just the
3D
way you
space. You
guys
need your
act, though.
altitude, don't you?
Because you lied, Witsit. You said that Loran C could determine altitude, and it could not. It would just make you make you a little bit off. You will go accurate to a
From my
quarter mile.
understanding, they had corrective factors for different altitudes, but I'll have to look it
Can
up.
you
But the
provide me that
original,
link?
but time out. You cannot invoke the precision of like an archaic technology and then compare it to the highly precise measurement tools and instruments we use that are highly sensitive to light now, right? That can measure way more precisely, and they pretend that the precision is somehow exclusive to sphericity. It's literally stupid. But what none of you people are doing is honestly conceding that the claim that was made that the time differential determining location accurately was exclusive to a globe is wrong.
That's the thing. I just want to backtrack there, which you made a comment about Loran that clarified it. They made corrections for altitude, but they did not calculate altitude. So the aircraft knew its altitude barometrically, and it would have been able to make a correction to the Loran to get a better position fix. But the reverse would not be true.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a 2D.
Okay, so it's not determining its 3D position using Loran. It is using its known altitude to get a better Loran fix.
Because of the cosine error.
Yeah, when they went on the bombing run, they got to a nominal altitude. They had to be at it to make sure the Luftwaffe were in the right position.
Dude, this is now the fifth time at least. Would you guys like to concede that the original claim that determining location accurately and precisely based on the
3D.
differential of signals is inaccurate when you claim it's exclusive to a globe?
No one said no. What do you mean? No one said it. Why?
That is what was claimed.
Red herring.
That is what was
It's a
claimed.
red herring.
No, it's not a red herring. It was the original point. You're the ones that are
Is it
using red herring.
exclusive to
Yeah,
GPS.
I know. I know.
100%
Because
red
Loran C
herring.
worked. Because Loran C worked on
They
one
can't do
technology. Because Loran C worked on one technology, that means that GPS has to do the exact same technology, right? Witsit?
Total straw man. So
No, it is not. It is a straw.
That was
it's not
a straw man,
It's
by
what
the
you're
way.
saying.
I agree with
What
Witsit. That
what
was
are
a
you
straw man.
fucking saying? Loran was a much different thing.
The only reason I even brought
frequencies.
Loran up, was because
It's a
someone
sidetrack.
made the claim. No, it wasn't a
Red herring.
sidetrack.
It's the
It
red
was
herring.
direct. No, it wasn't a red herring. You're all interrupting me. Is there any moderators in here, or are they just allowed to walk all over me?
Stop. Right
Oh, you
now,
can walk all over
NASA's
me, but I can't walk all over you, huh? That's the rules
Stop
around here.
for
Witsit?
1 second. Right now, NASA Shill, Pazza, and Pinky are all interrupting Witsit. So he's going to
Fuck
finish
me.
his point, and then you guys can continue. Go one
Yeah,
at
I'll
a
mute
time
up.
from here on out. Don't interrupt. We're just going to try to have a regular conversation. Thank you.
So the only reason I even brought Loran up, it was for a very specific point, right? Which is this claim that the time differential being used to determine location accurately, and that only works because of the GPS system that verifies the globe. That is incorrect. Okay, we've been doing this for a very long time, long before anything to do with the globe. It isn't proof of a flat Earth. It isn't proof one way or the other. It is a direct falsification of the claimed exclusivity. So that's the only reason that was brought up. What you guys started doing was bringing up the z-axis and the altitude and the differential and what it didn't do and all this stuff. And now you guys want to throw little history tidbits out there like it's somehow a rebuttal and then strawman what I claimed about it, whatever. Nah, and I'm just gonna ask again. And if you guys are gonna claim that that wasn't your claim, which it was, and it's recorded, then you guys should easily concede. We should all agree then, of course, that the claim that being able to use the difference in time of the signal, the time differential, to determine the location of something precisely and accurately is not exclusive to the GPS satellites on a globe.
It's not exclusive to GPS, no.
Thank you. Okay, that's the only point. So now when we come back full circle, right, what we found out this whole time is that for sure the way that this was represented by the Globers is fundamentally inaccurate, as though it's entirely independent of the globe. It is not, right? Even since the ground station.
That's where we diverge, because you just leapt from one position to another now.
Well, I'm just saying the specific claim, right? Because the ground station uses the WGS84, which uses the spherical coordinate systems intrinsically. It runs it through the ephemeris data. The ephemeris data uses the Keplerian orbits, which uses the center of mass, center of gravity, which is the center of the globe. Yeah, because this is the accurate recap. This is the accurate recap.
Orbit. Orbit on the Earth.
The important bit
Oh,
out
the
every
ground
time,
stations
and you
don't
know
use
you
the
are.
WGS84 now?
Yeah, I've got it right
the
here.
orbits are on the Earth, Witsit? You mean the orbits are on the globe Earth? Yeah, we know about that.
No. You mean you believe that there are orbits
believe,
around
not
a
believe.
globe Earth because you assume in the
Not a belief, not an assumption.
you assume whenever it's translated through the ephemeris that the Keplerian orbit is accurate based on the center of mass assumption, which is the center of gravity, which is the center of a globe.
Yeah. Also,
my
in the
correction would just
signal,
be that it uses it's ECF, not WGS84.
and in the signal,
Wait, what do you
there
think the
is
Earth
in the
is?
signal there is 8,000 mile an hour Doppler shift that is continually changing and different for every single receiver.
That doesn't change
How do you get
anything about
8,000 miles an hour of Doppler shift in a ground based signal source?
And not to
What?
mention
You're not even understanding the argument at all.
and not
Well,
to mention the
Doppler
fact
shift.
that
Wait,
The
you think I'm
Doppler
claiming
shift
that there
goes to
are no
signal.
You think I'm claiming there
Doppler
are
shift
no
goes.
satellites?
Doppler shift goes to signal, and signal goes to time delay. And the time delay is used to get an approximate range. Then, based on the microsecond phase inversion, to get an accurate phase count at 19 centimeters to distance to the satellite, which is continuously moving. And the receivers do a phase count, tracking, and then that's how you get the trilateration. It's not time differential dependent.
No one said it was.
Well, okay, I'll just say it anyway. It's not time-dependent differential. It goes to trilateration after determining the whole number of microseconds, then to counting the individual wavefronts off an array of 6 or 8 satellites. And that distance to this individual satellites and the Doppler shift to the individual satellites is continually changing. So it's not a stationary ground-based trick. Okay, no, then I clicked in late. They are moving. They are moving 8,000 miles an hour. They are moving 8,000 miles an hour, and they are 24,000 kilometers away.
All right, so look, dude, no one made any of those arguments. No one claimed that there were no satellites and that they were all ground-based. No one claimed that they weren't moving. No one claimed any of the stuff that you claimed. Everything that you just said, we went through, and I said most of it.
Well, it's not. That's exclusive to Globe because you can't do that on the ground.
Well, that's what you claim. Okay.
No, how are you going to get 8,000 miles an hour of Doppler shift on a moving broadcast source on the ground?
Okay, so you get the actual signal on the ground station. It's going to run through the assumption of the globe Earth, right? Then you're going to apply the ephemeris data, which is going to use Keplerian orbits, which is based on the center of gravity, which is the center of mass, which is the center of the globe. It's going to send that back up to the satellites and to the receiver. So it is the globe is baked in. The globe is baked in, buddy. It doesn't matter how much you try about it.
In my 30 years of application of using that equipment, and I own the equipment, no, you are incorrect. There is absolutely unsubstantiated assertions on your part about all these ground-based systems coming to the receiver. Because I have the equipment, I have the software, I've been using it for 30 years.
You don't even understand what I'm saying. Why are you pretending you're teaching me something? You keep conflating the control station with me claiming that it's all ground-based, that satellites are ground-based.
No, the individual receiver. No, the individual receiver receiving signal from ground.
Okay, the receiver receives it from the satellites.
Okay, the 8,000 mile an hour, 24,000 kilometer orbiting satellite.
So not from the ground.
Yeah, the orbiting satellite.
So why'd you say from the ground?
No, because I kept hearing ground-based systems, to the receiver. How?
Yeah,
But you
because you
do.
were late and
But
don't
you
know the
acquiesce.
conversation.
But okay,
You were
you
late and don't
acquiesce.
understand the context
Okay,
of the
you acquiesce to an
conversation.
orbiting satellite, then that pretty much is exclusive to the globe.
Incorrect. So, okay, I'm glad now you're.
How you get an orbiting
So
satellite on a flat Earth? Tell
he
me.
pops in at the tail end of the conversation, assumes to know what I'm saying, and then like passionately rambles about something that no one ever said, and then is corrected, and then does it 3 more times. Like,
Would
bruh,
you would
chill
you
out.
would you agree, Witsit, if there was 4 things in the sky with 4 positions in a shared unified coordinate system or wherever that may be, yeah, and you've got different distances to those, and you can work out where you are on your receiver, and everybody else simultaneously across the surface can. There would be one distinct maths that helped you do that if it was all above
Yeah,
a
yeah.
plane,
You,
and one
you
distinct mass. Hang on, and one
yes.
different distinct mass if you're all on a curve.
Yeah, do you remember when I started the conversation and I still manned your guys' position and I said that if you took 4 different positions, right? 4 different satellites with different positions, and then you calculated it out, that if you were to then you would give you a sphere. If you try to flatten it out, it would distort the distances.
Yeah. So what do we
Yeah.
make of that then? Well, I mean, if the receivers are all using a maths that takes a number of shared coordinate spaces through positions in the 3D space and a shared distance from each of those things and hangs 4 strings from 4 things and pulls it tight on one spot and says that's where I am, and it uses a particular type of maths that can't be the same if you're on a plane as you would be on a curve, what can we draw from that?
Were you not here for like the last hour?
Yeah, I see you're running away from the actual point I'm making.
How am
Now.
I running away?
Tell me
It's
about
literally.
how the ephemeris and the Keplerian is uploaded and comes down and it's all baked in.
Do you not
Tell me
get the
that again.
relevance of it? I mean, it's like it's really not my
That's not
problem, right?
relevant to the point. You see, this is a very distinct point I'm making, which doesn't actually matter where the information comes from. There are 4 things hanging in space above you with a shared coordinate system. That's transmitted to you, those 4 things, simultaneously with 4 distances, which you calculate derived from the time differential. You can imagine 4 things floating above you and 4 lengths of string, pulling them all taut, and you will be at that one point where those 4 pieces of string will all be taut in one position. That's what the receiver does, effectively. Now, if there's one set of maths that works on a plane and one distinct set of maths that works on a curve, and there's only one of those mathematical models in all the receivers used by everyone in the world, what can we take from that?
So were you not here when that's how the
Oh, you're going
conversation
to do it
started?
again, aren't you? Tell me about the
No, I want
Keplerian
to know.
model.
I want to know. Why are you interrupting me immediately?
Go on,
So
just
I want to
loop round and
know.
avoid what I'm saying and loop round again. Off you go.
No. No one's avoid. That's how the conversation. Like, okay, again, the way this conversation not necessarily started, but like what I brought it back to because I saw everyone talking about. I said, let me just still man you guys because it seems like some firefighters aren't even understanding what they're saying. And I said exactly what you just said, and said, does everyone agree? Everyone agreed. Then we went through the actual mechanism step by step. And now anytime I try to even quickly recap it, you start spiraling out of control. And then you want to loop back at the end and pretend I don't understand the point, make the point again, and pretend that it's a debunk, as though when I point to the fact I've just gone through all the time tediously with someone else in here, all the specifics of how the satellites work, every single step of it, every single part of the data, everything that it's ran through, and it's how it makes the globe in each step, and pretend I never made an argument, and pretend that you can just repeat the initial argument as though it's a debunk.
Okay,
So if I don't now do it
I give up
again,
with it because I'm actually making a point about geometry and measurements and an algorithm on my receiver, and you're not addressing that at all. Either you don't understand what I'm saying, which may be happening, yeah, or you're deliberately avoiding addressing what I'm saying to you. I don't know which one it is.
it's like you're not listening. I don't think.
Like if there's
Well,
a system to make
if there's
that
a
can
struggle with
discern between
communication, do you guys want to try
flatness and a
like maybe we
curve,
could both
then
steel man each
if it
other's
detects
position?
curve, then it's automatically baked in. That's a bit of a silly claim.
If like Witsit and Pazza, if you guys are struggling, saying that like each other is not understanding each other, you guys want to try steel manning what each other is saying, and then maybe we can reach a common ground and like forward the discussion.
Witsit is saying that the ground stations track the positions of these things with respect to the ground, with respect to what they think is the geometry of the Earth. They run it through the mechanism to get the ephemeris, the dynamic ephemeris. They use Keplerian mathematics to work out the predictive evaluation of the ephemeris over a time period before it gets another ephemeris. That's transmitted up. That's what's transmitted. It's all baked into the assumption these things are all around the Earth. And the key is that whatever's baked in, each one of those things has a position in 3D space, and ultimately something on the and this is where I still want to take it a little bit further. But we don't seem to be doing that. Is irrespective of what's baked into them, irrespective of what's baked into the assumptions about their coordinates. Okay, there are 4 things, or 5 things, or 6 things, each with at any given moment, when as far as the receiver is concerned, distinct positions in 3D space. Now, whether you're on a globe or you're on a flat, there's a 3D space above you. Okay. Those positions and those times can be run through one set of maths if it's a flat plane to work out where you are, and one distinctly different set of maths if you're on a sphere.
You repeated your argument. Can you still man mine?
I just did. I just gave you all the stuff about the uplink, the baked-in assumptions, everything you just said. I just said that, and I conceded it, and I still manned it. Were you not listening?
Okay. No, you didn't still man my position at all. So, I mean, maybe kind of said a couple things I said, but whatever. So, okay. For a GPS receiver to calculate its 3D position using 4 satellites, it needs what?
Sorry, are you asking me to still man your position by answering your questions?
Well, no, I've already still manned your position 7 times. You just repeated it. Everyone understands it.
You haven't still manned my position once. What's my position?
What? That the satellite's in 4 different positions above you, and then they give you a signal to a single receiver, and that this can be received all across the Earth, and the only way that you can properly account for their positioning is on a globe, and then if you actually try to calculate it out on a flat Earth, it's going to distort the distances.
Right. What?
That's the 7th time.
Aren't you concerned by that? Isn't that is ramifications that significant to you?
No.
Why not?
That's the original argument.
Because I've already conceded that the argument is valid. It has improper assumptions, and the data itself also bakes in the spherical assumption for you to even make that claim.
That's twaddle.
So, okay,
That's
so you say it's not true.
So
You say it's not true. You say it's not true. It doesn't have to be maths. Okay, so do you understand? Okay, the satellite to determine its 3D position, right? For the 4 satellites.
No, the fact that you have 3 or 4 things in distinct 3D space sharing the same coordinate system is now a question of just geometry of 4 things in you. Where you are, whether you're on the surface, whether you're in the air, whether there's no physical medium around you. Okay, there's a common coordinate system. 4 or 5 things telling you where they are and how far away they are. That's all that's left.
That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Well, you
so
don't
this
know
is basically
you don't know the algorithm receiver, then, do you?
You don't know how it works. Basically, the way that they think it works is that the receiver turns on. It looks at the 4 random points in space. It measures the distance and can magically discover a globe.
Points. Not 4 random points.
Yeah, the random points of satellites.
They're not random.
Pick arbitrary points. You can pick them randomly.
No, you can't pick them randomly. You can only pick the ones which are in your receiver domain.
Okay, I'm saying that for the intents of the math, it can be whatever points that we pick.
It's the things that are up there that are transmitting distinct.
So that was just a pedantic interjection. So you can't.
Don't inject random in this.
Are you saying the coordinate system is arbitrary, Witsit?
They think the receiver turns on, it looks at the 4 points in space, measures the distance, and poof, magically proves a globe.
Oh my god!
Right? Yeah, because the math only works on a globe.
Is that what you call still manning?
That is a well. No, I've already still manned it.
You're not getting any better.
No, time. I've already still manned it. Now I'm just accurately characterizing it. Do you know a difference in that? A stillman is presenting your strongest form of your argument. The strongest form of your argument requires me to bake in a bunch of assumptions, so it's really not that strong, but it's all good. So the satellites do not know where they are. Okay, there's a master control station on the ground. It tracks the satellites.
Someone taught you this an hour ago. We all know this.
No one taught me anything.
Yes,
no one taught me anything.
They corrected you earlier on.
No, I brought all this up.
You going? Oh, it corrects itself.
It's recorded. I brought all these things up, bro.
You brought them all up. Of course you did. We didn't hear what we heard the last hour.
Apparently
You
not.
don't
Yeah, I mean,
change, do you? You can't change, can you?
the person I was actually talking to that was clearly more knowledgeable than you, he would tell you
Yes.
that I brought a lot of this up, right? He may have taught me a couple things, I don't know, but I definitely knew this part, right? So you have like this master control station on the ground. It's going to track all the satellites, okay? The ground controllers take the tracking data and run it through a software model.
Keplerian
And
model.
that model is
Baked
hard
in
coded
sphere.
with the assumption that the Earth is a sphere. Okay, it uses a sphere based model to generate the data, and it's called the ephemeris. And that file tells the satellite, "Hey, here's your 3D position based on our globe model.
It doesn't just
Here's
tell
your
it that though,
3D
does it?
position
What else does it
vector."
tell it? Doesn't
It
just tell
tells
it
the receiver. It tells the
Y'all
receiver
over
where the satellite is.
talking.
So
Well, it
Witsit,
sends it to the satellite. It sends it to the satellite. The satellite then sends it to the receiver.
so if we send
So,
up a bunch of stuff that tells us it's on a globe, but it's not on a globe, wouldn't the positions be
oh my,
inaccurate if the Earth was actually flat?
The
that
issue
is
is
so insane
also
that you think that's a
What do you mean?
point.
No, it would have to
the
be.
no, the issue is
If we're
the
telling it,
ephemeris.
just 10 seconds, just 10 seconds. If we're telling it the satellite that it's on a globe, but it's actually on a flat Earth, wouldn't we be telling it wrong information and then we'd get wrong data out of it?
No,
Why not?
because it takes the actual signals, it sends it to the receiver. The receiver just makes the corrections based on a local position, and you would never know.
We would never know, but it's not. It's not
How do you
on.
not know
It's
that?
not.
How do you not know that?
It's not. It's not on the. It's not on the orbit we know it. We're not. It's not on the orbit that we tell it is. So it's on actually on the flat Earth. But
Well,
we
okay. So what? What? It takes its position. It takes its recurring cyclical data. It's gonna then transfer it into a Keplerian orbit on the globe math, and then every single positioning data from that point forward is gonna run through that correction.
right. And if we're actually on a flat plane, we'd be telling it wrong information then.
It would be wrong, but it would still be right for practical purposes because
What
it
the hell
takes
does
the
that mean?
origin,
Within
takes the
centimeters.
actual. Holy shit, dude!
Within centimeters. If we're
Master
telling it.
Chill, do you deny that you're not done? Okay, you have to listen.
Well, he's
Can I put a proposal
dodging
up?
the question. If we're telling it it's on a circular orbit, it's on a very circular orbit, goes around twice a day, and we tell it, hey, you're on this orbit, but it's not on that orbit. It's actually doing some wiggles of a flat Earth that we squish down. Wouldn't that be giving us wrong information? Especially, I mean, because
No, so
everybody.
you don't get it. So,
No,
like
I don't get
whenever,
it. Please tell me.
like say you take your phone and it's going to tell you your 3D position. It calculates your 3D position based on the ephemeris coordinates. Those coordinates were created by a computer that assumed the globe. That output math is mathematically guaranteed to spit out a globe. The receiver's not discovering the
No.
shape of the Earth. It's not proving the shape of the Earth. It's solving an equation where a globe was entered in the beginning.
It's affirming
Well,
the
Okay.
but it's a little bit
consequence.
different than the
So
phone,
so
though. Then
so try this then.
it's a little bit different than the phone, but I mean, because these things are, we're not, there's no uplink to these things from us. We're only getting information down from it.
You
If
should,
it was telling, still don't see how you can say that if we tell the satellite it's on a circular orbit on a globe, that it's actually going to give us the precise position on the flat Earth.
Well,
Well, you
this
have
is the
elliptical
interesting
orbits.
part about it is that what you're struggling
Although
with here is the pragmatism of the matter, right? So I can build my house as
what I'm
if the earth
struggling
is
with is how it
flat, right?
works.
Excuse me, sir. I'm in the middle of
Well,
speaking. I don't know if you understand how conversations go, but please mute
got your
your
voice
mic
back, Tora.
until I'm done, okay? I can build my house upon the earth. You can do it. You believe the earth is a globe. I can treat it completely as flat, and it still pragmatically works. Now, do you agree the earth is flat because I could build my house on it as if it is flat?
how big is your house? What would be the
Dude, it
globe
doesn't
completion
matter,
curvature
okay? If
over
you
your house?
cannot deal with the
Exactly, it does matter
hypothetical,
though.
are you having a hard time with sanctification, sir?
No, no. The
Nobody's
problem here,
arguing about
is
locally
actuality.
flat, you
Because
dickhead.
the curve over
Do you
your
guys
house, your
understand the
house is what?
pragmatic value is different,
Your
right,
house
than
is
the
100 feet.
actual
Your house.
scenario? Okay?
So how big is your house? How big is your house now?
Dude,
Is it
that's
10
not
feet, 100 feet?
important or relevant to the
It is important.
question. Can you
It
understand
is
a
relevant.
hypothetical? Do you understand how to operate within my hypothetical or not?
Well, I'm trying to show you your hypothetical is incorrect because your house is only like
My
100
house
feet
is
long.
10
There's a
miles by
curvature.
10 miles.
You have a big house, really? Where's that?
Dude, you still can't operate within the hypothetical? Are you kidding
Oh,
me?
you have a 10 by 10 mile house? Did you actually build a 10 by 10 mile
In
house?
this
Please send me pictures so we
hypothetical,
know.
yes, I have a 10 mile by 10 mile house, and I treated the earth as
Oh, so when
flat
you
and I
actually
made the
build it,
walls plumb to one another.
when
Okay,
you
so
actually
GPS would
build a
measure
10 mile by
curvature in
10
the
mile
floor.
house, please. Yeah, please, when you build a 10 by 10 mile house, let me know how it goes. In the meantime,
Dude,
you build a normal house.
you have to be able to operate within a hypothetical if you believe the earth is a
Okay, well
globe.
then
Because what you're saying is
start off.
if the earth is a globe, then this would work this way. You're asking us to engage in a hypothetical, and then you
No,
won't
not a
even engage in a hypothetical. That is entirely dishonest from your part, sir. So guess what?
It's not a
Let me
hypothetical
just
to say that
can I
even with
wait? You guys just
even
cried
excuse
and
me,
cried about
even
how I
with
wouldn't
it.
respond. Let me just finish. Let me just finish it. Just don't interrupt me, dude. It takes maybe 1 minute. I'm done. I'm not gonna have the conversation 500 more times. You're not going to engage with them in good faith. We both know that. You're not going to engage the hypothetical in good faith. You're going to make some smarky comment. No one cares. Okay. So someone tried to jump in and say, it's the WGS84 anymore. It's the ECF. What a just dishonest tactic anyway, right? What's the ECF based upon? The WGS84. That's the reference ellipsoid. That's so stupid. So so we just covered the first part, right? We covered the first part that it's baked in. I even used just say you walk out with your phone and calculate your position. We use the ephemeris coordinates, right? So we agree with that. So this is the other major problem that you have. Well, of course, again, you have to. You guys were originally claiming that you're just going to take some 3D point in empty space, and you don't need a globe at all, right? But to actually give you a position, it runs the data through the framework based on the WGS84, right? Which is, of course, a model based on an oblate spheroid. So the software takes the raw time delays and forces them to align with that coordinate system based off of the sphere. So the whole entire claim that you guys are making isn't true. You claim that the math distorts on a flat Earth map only because the Earth is a globe and it can only work if the Earth is a globe. But that's not true. It's you're taking a data set that was made and formatted for a sphere and forcing it over a flat plane. Of course, it's going to distort. It's a non-point. Okay, and then when you get into the actual axes themselves, the ECF axes, right? You have the origin, which is just the center of mass, the center of a globe. The z-axis, that's the Earth's rotational axis, right? Coming out through the poles, and then the x-axis is going to be on the equatorial plane. So it's it's all based on a sphere. You can't even set up the math problem without the parameters of the spherical globe Earth model. You literally can't even set up the equation that you're invoking. So you can't claim that 3D math proves a globe when the ground stations use a globe to calculate the satellite positions. The satellites broadcast that globe data to the receiver, and the receiver's using a globe WGS84 hard coded in to even read it. So the math being distorted on a plane is not because the plane is physically impossible and the Earth is a globe. It's because the math distorts because you take the data set that has been intentionally engineered for the globe and then you're plotting it on a flat plane without changing it. So it's just literally like a loop. You're just begging the question. It's just circular, right? That's all you're doing. Very simple.
You beg the question right there horribly.
Can I try to
Yeah,
understand what you had just said, Austin? Are you saying because it's internally consistent with a very specific geometry, that doesn't necessarily mean it would be consistent with any other geometry? And why would one assume it would be internally consistent with a completely different geometry?
Yeah, it's intrinsically dependent on it.
Okay, so at best, it's internally consistent then, right? So everyone agrees
it is.
It's internally consistent, right? But then to say, but it doesn't work on this thing, well, you'd have no reason to expect it to work on something that isn't internal. You're talking about internal consistency and then trying to apply it to an external thing. It's a weird thing
It's
to
also
do.
externally consistent, Tor. Oh, sorry, Gally. So it's also externally consistent. So you can do, and we've kind of touched on this before. But
Wait,
if you went out with
If you say that it's externally consistent, you're saying that there should be no issue with plotting it on a flat plane. That's kind of the thing that.
Oh yeah. If you have a physical flat plane and traverse a physical flat plane with GPS, your ECEF coordinates will show that you're on a plane.
Wait. So is it internally consistent and externally consistent at the same time or not?
Yes. So, and here's a test that you can do. So we can go to our friendly salt flats, right? And we can use a very precise distance measuring tool, and we can lay out a whole network of receivers on the ground and measure the distance and angles between them very precisely. So we know their relative positions to each other. Then we can set them running and record a whole bunch of GPS satellite data. And we can take that data away and we can test it for both consistency within itself and consistency within the known measurements. And you'll find that there is only one physical and geometric solution that satisfies your known external consistency from your measured relative positions and the GPS consistency. And it demonstrates that the coordinate system that GPS uses is actually correct, internally and externally consistent.
Okay, so that would be the point of contention then. So Witsit, would you argue that it isn't externally consistent because it's using data that is affirming the thing that it's trying to prove? Is that what you're saying?
It is affirming. It is affirming because think about it. The satellites, if you got satellite A and satellite B is traversing vertically, and it's giving it a drop, it's giving it a vertical radius basically. So how does it know? How does the satellite know where it's at? It only knows what they tell it. If they tell it that it's circling around a globe with a vertical radius, then that's what the output's going to be. I don't know what don't y'all get about this.
But that was the point of my experiment, Brian, right? And I've done this for a small number of receivers, low quality receivers. If you record the signals from the satellites, which also includes where they think they are or what their ephemeris is, and the time, you can record all of those signals across a network of receivers where you have explicitly measured the physical distances between those receivers. So you have a matrix of distances between all of the receivers. We've recorded all of the satellite signals. You can verify that they all see the same signals. They arrive at slightly different times, and you can solve both the GPS problem and the local, the reality problem, and find that there's only one solution to that problem, which is the advertised behavior of GPS. There is no alternative geometry about the surface of the Earth that will solve that problem.
I think there is.
So if the satellites aren't where they say they are,
Josh was in here. He's a PhD in aerospace, and he brings up the same thing that you're bringing up, Dazzle, which is basically the irrefutable thing is that this signal is being sent, to all the receivers that are within the range of that signal that can see that signal, and it has no way of knowing which receiver is seeing that signal. And it's mathematically, and he was ready to show him how it's mathematically impossible for these receivers who are all within the domain of those radio signals to be receiving a signal that they're using to find their location, and yet at the same time somehow be like calculating the Earth's, flattening out the Earth in that. It's just mathematically not possible because they're receiving the same signal. That's not refuted.
Can you repeat, dude?
Are you referring to Josh Ingersoll? I don't think he has a PhD. Yeah, I don't think he has a PhD from what I know.
If I tell these satellites that they're traversing over a globe radius,
maybe it was a master's.
You can't map it onto a flat Earth, though, right? Of course you can't. I've just baked in that they're traversing over a globe radius, so of course you can't.
No, the part that you're missing is the fact that the receivers are all receiving.
I'm not done, dude. Not done, dude. If you calculate it over a flat Earth, and I would argue that the ephemeris is based on coplanar points, except the math, like the negative when you get south and all that. Once you do the math, then yeah, it's globe. It's a globe-based model. But as far as the coordinates itself, but you'd have different speeds. If you assumed a flat Earth, you'd have different speeds, and depending on where they're at, and it'd be different, man.
So you've got to take the data that we have and show them.
An easier way to understand that would be like if we say that, oh, we're gonna fire this cannon at precisely, at every minute, on the minute marker at every minute, right? At 00 on everybody's watch, right? and then people all around, the valley are going to, write down the exact moment they're watched when they hear the cannon fire, right? And you can use the speed of sound to calculate your distance from that cannon. And that's what GPS is doing. There's no way to hide the fact that, once that cannon fires, that sound is traveling through the air for everyone that's going to be able to hear it across the valley, right? The 20 miles or whatever. So everybody can hear that cannon fire. So there's just no way, because that signal is propagating, right? It's the same for the GPS signal. There's no way to somehow bake it in so that someone hears that cannon fire at the wrong time to make the distances not work. Do you know what I mean? That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I understand that, but they could have baked the assumptions in, assuming a flat Earth, and made it work. They have to do corrections, like constant corrections, constantly, and they're saying that the orbits are wonky, due to the anomalies, the various anomalies in the south. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it than just cut and dry. But I'll say this: it works good, but it don't prove a sphere, man. It's you're using the model to prove the model, but I'm not dogging the model out, but I'm saying it doesn't prove there's a sphere. If they calculated out over a flat Earth and did all the transforms and all that, it wouldn't prove flat Earth. It'd just be using that model. They'd have to do
You're
different corrections.
you're still not understanding. You'd have to fundamentally change reality to be able to make it so that a signal that's propagating across
Okay.
the receivers that
Let me
time
give
when
you
that
the
signal arrives to hide the relationships of that signal after it's traveling in actual reality. There's no way to bake in a calculation in the transit time of that signal
you
that's
understand
moving through
this.
reality.
Okay.
That's the part
Let me
that
ask you one
you're
question.
not getting.
Okay, fair enough. How does the satellite know where it's at and where it's going? Let's see if you
Part of it
even
is
understand that.
completely irrelevant to this.
Yeah, but you need to answer that question.
It's completely irrelevant to this point. That would be like what we're talking about is if we were trying to isolate a location by sound, if we were trying to trilaterate a location by sound, it's irrelevant. Yes, what you're saying is
You
yeah,
say
the what you're arguing about is where the cannon
dude.
is, and what we're talking about
Not
is
arguing.
what is the relationship between that sound and the individual people that hear that sound travel through the air, and somehow you can make it so that those people will hear the sound in a way to make it look like they are where they're not where they're supposed to be.
Okay, how does the cannon know where it's at? Answer that.
It's
If you say it's irrelevant,
that's
you should
irrelevant to the conversation.
you should answer it. If it's irrelevant, then answer the question. How does
Because
the
if the
cannon know
cannon,
where?
so the only thing that would be important is if the
How do we
receivers are
understand
then
what I'm
trying
asking?
to
How does it know where it's at? How
the
does the cannon?
here's what you're missing. The only thing that would tell you is that if they lie about if they bake in and they lie about where the cannon is when it fires, then you're going to have the wrong location in reference to where the cannon is. But it's still not going to change the fact that the relationship between the people that hear the cannon at different times, that relationship that you establish is irrelevant to where the actual cannon is. That relationship is the
Not
relationship we're trying
asking
to
that.
focus on. It's the relationship between where these people are when they hear the boom of that cannon, which can't be lied. You cannot lie. You cannot bake it into a lie. It's just physical reality of a signal propagating.
This is pretty telling, dude. I didn't ask you what that tells us. I asked you a simple question. If you think it's irrelevant, you should have no problem answering. This is very telling. So how does the cannon or the satellite know where it's at, dude? I'm just seeing if you even
Again,
understand this.
it's
You
irrelevant to
don't.
the argument. So if you're going to ask again, I'm
You
going to
should
tell
have
you
no
again,
trouble
it's
answering.
irrelevant to the argument. It's irrelevant to the argument.
You don't understand it, dude. It just shows the fact you can't answer that.
No.
That shows you don't understand our argument. You don't understand our argument at all. You can
You
easily
came into
answer
this way too late. They were arguing about how the satellite gets its
the whole
location,
time.
and an hour ago. But again, it's
Been listening
irrelevant to
the whole
this
time, bud.
point. We're talking about the relationship between the receivers and when they hear a signal.
Then why won't you answer the question?
The question is irrelevant.
You don't understand it.
It's
Then
not
you should have
relevant to
no
my
trouble answering
point.
it.
It's like asking me,
You don't
what
understand.
about the price of tea in China?
Dude, the math is identical if I move the freaking cannon or the satellite. You're acting like the math is
No,
different. No, it's not.
again, you're
Yeah,
just
no.
not understanding the
No, it's
point.
not. You don't understand this, dude. If you move the cannon based on a flat Earth, then the math is the same, dude. If you got two curving lines or two straight lines, if you got the cannon going straight overhead or curving, but you can't even answer that. You still won't answer the question, how does the satellite know where it's at, bro? You act like that's not important. That's the whole freaking that's the whole case right there, is where is the satellite at? How does it know where it's at? You got to answer that to even show you
Yeah,
understand this, dude.
I just maybe you just don't understand the abstraction. What we're arguing about is basically for between the flat Earth and the globe Earth, it would be like, oh well, those two people that are hearing the cannon, they're actually standing right next to each other, but they're hearing the cannon as if they're far away from each other.
Just say you don't
And
know, dude.
and
I don't know.
that's what and that would be a physical impossibility. There is no way that the two people can be standing next to each other and not hear the signal at the same time.
If I move the cannon, would that change when they hear it?
No, because they're still standing next to each other. So you could put the cannon
It
anywhere
wouldn't.
and they would
No,
still hear the cannon at the same time, regardless of where you move the cannon.
really? At the
Yes,
same
because they're
time,
standing.
dude.
Yes, because they're
Oh my
standing
god.
next to each other, right? But what and that's and
And
what
how
we're
would they
trying to
hear it at the
say
same
is
time if it's on one side of the guy or if it's right in between them, bro? That is just, bro. You definitely don't understand this. I need to talk to somebody else.
no.
If you think they're
Okay,
going to do it at the same
go ahead.
time, move the cannon, bro. If I move the cannon, if I have the cannon right in between them, then they're going to hear it at the exact same time. If I have the cannon, if I tell the cannon or if I move the cannon to one side of the other one, then the guy that I move it to is going to get the signal first, bro. You have no clue. You need to drop out of this and let Jazza or somebody who understands this. You can't even answer a question. How does the satellite know where it's at?
He's right, Brian. It doesn't matter. The satellite really doesn't know where it's at. You have to work that out. But what he's trying to say is if the satellite is not where, so he's trying to say if the satellite is not where we think it is, then we'll hear it at the wrong time. And multiple people won't, nobody will agree on where the satellite is if we hear it at the
That
wrong
ain't what he
time.
said, though, Jazza. He said that
No, it is.
you would
It
hear it at
is what he
the
said.
time. Wait, don't interrupt me. No, he said you could move the cannon, they'd still hear it at the same time. That's
If they're
ridiculous,
right
dude.
next
I
to
can't
each other, right?
understand that.
He's making a simplification. If
It's
they're right
irrelevant.
next to each other, right? But if they separated by some distance, right? If they separated by some distance and the cannon fires, then you'll get easily noticeable timing differences, right?
Right. So what he said is wrong. But look, I knew you wouldn't say that. But look, that's a
I think you're
decent job trying to.
misinterpreting him.
Hold on, don't interrupt me. Just entertain me and answer the question. Just how does the satellite know where it's at? I know you know, but entertain me. You say it's irrelevant. Entertain me.
It gets told where it is, and
It
the
gets told
receiver,
where it is.
and but more importantly, the receiver works out where it is based on what the satellite thinks its time is.
Right.
So
And
the
do they
satellite
send
doesn't tell you where it is; it tells you how to work out where it is based on the time that it's
exactly?
transmitting.
Okay. And now one more question, just so people will start connecting the dots. So the satellites don't signal to each other though either, do they?
No.
No, because there's no receiver. Okay, so if a satellite A is moving, and satellite B is moved out further, or it's ahead of it, and it's been told that it's dropped around a sphere, but it hasn't. That's going to change things. That's going to line up with a flat Earth map. If you don't tell it that, if you tell it that
Okay.
it's just on the same plane, it's going to line up with a flat Earth map. It's pretty much going to be identical. I mean, damn near. But anyway, that's the question
Okay.
you didn't want to answer. The satellites are told where they're moving. They don't communicate with each other. It's that's why it's a group of globes. Modeling a
So all,
good.
I don't know if it's you breaking up on me. So all that matters is that at the point in time that you are determining your location, that the satellite needs to be where it claims it is. Okay. Otherwise, first of all, if they aren't exactly where they claim they are, you won't be able to solve for your location because the signal timing won't be right. And if they're not exactly where they say they are, you will disagree strongly with somebody nearby, but as to the distance between you two. So if you've got a mate 100 metres down the road and you know it's exactly 100 metres down the road, and you're both comparing your GPS readings and the data that's transmitted, you will not agree on either each other's location or the distance between you. And that's the key consistency check between internal consistency and external consistency, which is what Finky was going on about with RTK. So RTK is like the ultimate external consistency check for GPS. That it's
as long as the ratios, as long as the ratios
no,
are
no,
consistent, I'll use a
no.
different geometry.
There's only one mathematical solution to at that point in time, right? If you've got the XYZ of the satellites and the time, there is only one mathematical solution to your position, and for somebody else, there's only one mathematical solution to their position, and there's only one mathematical solution that fits all observations at once, which is where everybody is and where the satellites are, right?
This is what I agree with, though. If you tell them that they're spinning around a ball and you give them a vertical radius, I agree. There's only one that would work, and that's the one, that's doing what it tells them. It's using the system, telling them what they're doing. So I agree with that.
But you're forgetting Jake's analogy here, that the other thing that physically exists is the time taken for the signal to travel. So if the satellites aren't where they say they are, the time of arrival at different receivers won't correspond to the physical position of the satellite, right? If the satellite's not physically where it says it is, then each receiver will be confused about why the time difference is what it is. So the satellites have to be where they say they are at the time they transmit. Otherwise, everything is just a complete mess on the receiver side.
You'll never be able to get them to agree. You could do the global eye for one receiver on one location at one time, but you could never have it be where you have thousands of receivers or millions of receivers that are all agreeing on the location based on some baked in global eye into the flat Earth signal. That's what the claim is, that they can somehow make the receivers think that they're on a globe Earth when they're on a flat Earth, and it's not physically possible because the way the signal propagates requires that to physically propagate around the circle Earth.
Didn't hear Dazabro? They don't communicate with each other, dude. Y'all are acting like we couldn't tell them they're doing something else or moving whatever speed and planar and use a different geometry. That's ridiculous.
Brian,
I agree.
I never said anything about them communicating with one another.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the satellites think. All that matters is that. So, all that matters is that at the time they transmit, we can work out where they are. And if that is not right, if the time and the position do not line up, you cannot solve for position. And more importantly, if it doesn't line up, you can't work out the difference between your position and somebody else's.
Well, what's interesting is I think when you said it's externally consistent, you realize the entailment of that is that its shape or geometry of the entirety independent. Because if it's
so the XYZ and you've just nailed it. The XYZ coordinate system is geometry.
Okay, so this is neither exclusive proof for or against globe.
So we've now determined that we have a geometrically consistent coordinate system where we can measure our geometric location accurately, repeatably, and precisely in a Cartesian coordinate system. So then what you do is you travel around the Earth measuring all those points, and that generates your sphere. And that shows you the surface of the Earth in this internally and externally consistent system is actually a sphere. If the Earth was flat as you travel around,
externally consistent system, you realize when I say internally, I mean to the globe paradigm and externally to the not globe paradigm, right?
Yeah. So internally, I mean geometrically and mathematically consistent, right?
Hang on one sec. Before, I don't want you to go too far. You're saying that it's internally and externally consistent, therefore it's not exclusive. You're saying it would be acceptable on both, and it's not like exclusive to a sphere. So you're agreeing with basically everything that Witsit was saying.
So mathematically, it's consistent internally, right? We have a Cartesian coordinate system solving for relative positions in that Cartesian coordinate system. There's no bearing on the shape of the Earth there. And sorry, I'm making a copy. Hope it's not noisy. So we have this provably internally and externally consistent mathematical framework matches reality as measurement, right? Which you can infer from that the satellites are actually where they say they are. And then from that, you can determine the properties of the surface of the Earth because you have this coordinate system that is consistent mathematically and consistent physically.
I think you're using equivocal predication on the term externally, where externally.
By externally, I mean that it
can
matches
something
reality,
be
right?
internally and externally consistent.
So maybe I'm misusing the terms, but what I'm trying to say is that the internal mathematical model, which is a simple geometrical model, is internally self-consistent. It matches reality, so its external view is also demonstrably consistent. In that the mathematical model will produce values in reality.
So
Specific
internally
distances between.
consistent would mean that when we plug in values, assuming a given thing, we get results to that given thing, right? Externally consistent or not internally consistent is saying that it's not exclusive to that one given thing.
So maybe I'm using the wrong terms.
The correct term you would want to use there, Daz, is not mathematically consistent. It's mathematically equivalent.
But wait, how do the receivers determine the time? Because it's determined the location of the satellite, they need the time, right?
Yeah, so it's a solution to simultaneous equations. So if you've got four variables and four equations, which means four observations, you can solve for all four.